gosh, you guys. And I got you guys.
Oh no, without green.
Yeah, we destroy arguments up in this bitch.
Yeah, list the meadow with its fruit. Till Wingo, let's go straight up in it. Pray God that I flinch him. Yeah, that's right, guys. It's how we know that God is real. He made it obvious through his creation and our reflections of godliness. It's not that simple to say people are just ignorant. They have knowledge buried that's deep down inside of them. Won't go admitting what they know, they push the truth down. But like a beach ball, the truth ain't something you could drown. All the effort to suppress it only wears them out. People suppress the truth in unrighteousness, fear, and doubt. They lie to self just to avoid what feels uncomfortable. Truth about God and also fear of judgment too. It's not just lying, it's believing in their own lie. Tell themselves I don't believe in God, their ways show otherwise. To rationalize, they twist the evidence to fit their hate. For instance, twisting scriptures to convince themselves it's fake. And some will say that science proves there is no God, but really, that's using God's creation to run from him insincerely. They use logic to deny logic. They make truth claims to claim the truth is nonsense. It's an excuse game, they locked in the subconscious. Ignore the obvious and make excuses to stay godless. This is self-deception, this is self-deception. No more self-awareness, no deep introspection. This is self-deception, this is self-deception. No more self-awareness, no deep introspection. Be aware that there are levels to awareness. People will not always be aware that they're aware of this. It can be subconscious, it feels safe not to admit. And other times they know they are suppressing what's legit. And over time this puts their spirit to sleep and numbs it. They forget God on purpose for fear of guilt and judgment. Because the evidence for God is clear, there's no excuse. Self-deception makes them guilty through truth they chose to refuse. It's like a mother who won't admit her son's a thief. She knows he can't be trusted, but she acts like he is sweet. She worries about him at home, but tells people he's fine. She noticed missing cash, but it hurts so much she lies. That kid will grow into an uncomfortable truth. Instead of dealing with him when he's young, she let him loose. She could have changed the outcome, but it's too late. Her son becomes a monster because of fear she didn't face. They use logic to deny logic. They make truth claims to claim the truth is nonsense. It's an excuse game, they're locked in the subconscious. Ignore the obvious and make excuses to stay godless. This is self-deception, this is self-deception. No more self-awareness, no deep introspection. This is self-deception, this is self-deception. No more self-awareness, no deep introspection. You use God's absolutes to deny God as the absolute. So you have no use to me, you're godless and you have no truth. The habits you exhibit and the traits that you collapse into stand as proof in spirit of your death because you have no fruits. The line between what you think and what you know is broken. Like Oedipus, you cling to denial because of lies you've chosen. Like King Lear, you despise true love for a lie that's spoken. So it's clear you're self-deceiving to hide your coping. It's become normal to deceive yourself about belief. Escapism is nothing new, but facing it sets cowards free. The power leaves you when you put up barriers of fable and disables overcoming that what's happening is painful. The fate you get is what you sow, and this you sow, and this you know. The seed you plant, and they grow no matter how you feel about them. And if they're rotten, then you need to rip them out then. Self-deception seems to stem from trauma, but complex inspection leads to get you farther. In life some lessons hurt and times can get hard, but if you deceive yourself, you never leave the start. Just accept what you cannot change. Embrace what you need to make it. Don't hold on to a band-aid on an open wound. Don't abuse yourself no more cause you know the truth. Why would you lie to you? I don't get it. What good does denial do? Make you pathetic. Why not rationalize the truth to be a legend? Selective memory and biases with no proof. Confess it. You don't know, do you? He is risen. That you know you do. Indeed, he is risen. The hold on you keeps you twisted. The facts you overrule will lead you to forgiveness. Just practice some self-awareness and know you. The logically and be fearless to own you. Embrace discomfort. It will mold you. The ways that you suffered, now you surpass the old you. If you don't face that which oppresses you, it compresses you. Don't let it move you to belief unless it's true. Express the roots of your issues and then you'll step into a life of blessed truth. Correct yourself with every move. Self-deception seems to stem from trauma, but complex inspection leads to get you farther. In life some lessons hurt and times can get hard, but if you deceive yourself, you never leave the start. Just Accept what you cannot change. What you need to make it through heaven's gates. Don't hold on to a bandit on an open wound. Don't abuse yourself no more, cause you know the truth. Why would you lie to you? What good does denial do? Make you pathetic. Why not rationalize the truth? To be a legend, selective memory and biases with no proof. Confess it, you don't know, do you? Heal what you need to make it through heaven's gates. Don't hold on to a bandit on an open wound. Don't abuse yourself no more, cause you know the truth. You use God's absolutes to deny God is the absolute. You use God's absolutes to deny God is the absolute. You use God's absolutes to deny God is the absolute. You use God's absolutes to deny God is the absolute. Snap out of it.
What? What?
In shadowlands where doubt takes hold, a twisted whisper, stories told of ancient truths turned upside down, and gods of men on fragile crowns. The serpent's hiss, a poison dart to pierce the faithful, tear apart. We march alone, a weary few with hearts ablaze and vision true.
So, yo. How about them Cowboys? Not I mean, not I mean. The thing about science doesn't make sense. Hey. Good morning. No, science needs God to order the world. So the world has this nature has rational order and patterns which it obeys, and then we can understand the patterns with our mind. That requires God. God has to put the patterns in the world, or else there aren't patterns in the world for us to study. And God also has to design our mind in a way that it can connect to the natural world. And where's Darth? I mean, it's pretty early. In the atheist model of reality, there's nothing connecting it. David Hume said it was, what did he say? Everything's disconnected and disjointed. There's nothing connecting anything together in the atheist model of reality, because they have no single unifying principle. when we're talking about like single unifying principle, basically it's just like a fancy way to say that all of existence, all knowledge, all value comes from a single source. Like existence, meaning, truth, the standard of good and evil, that has to all come from one source, because reality operates in a way where like existence, truth, and value are all interconnected. So we need to connect existence with truth and with value. It's called unity connection. We need to connect them together. So we need like a single source of like, we need to get our existence, our truth, and our value from the same source. And that's what we have in the model of reality that's described in the Bible. So it's like legit the only model of reality no human has ever come up with. Like, if we look at like any other secular model of reality, or any other gods too, any non-Christian, I should say, any non-Christian model of reality, it doesn't make any sense, because we just assume that model and we watch how like nothing makes sense, reality falls apart. Well, the JS leads. The problem is like, if you're gonna say that God is a fantasy, then you're gonna have to explain like, why does anything exist? Like, what makes something exist if it's not God? Because in the Christian model of reality, God makes everything exist. So when you deny the source of existence, that's just not. That's quite a claim, right? So if God's not the source of existence, you're saying that like something else is the source of existence? Like, what the hell would that be? And you got nothing. Like, what sustains that anything exists? I'm not even saying like what created the universe, right? I'm not talking about the universe, I'm talking about existence itself. What is the source of existence itself? Why do things exist? I would say God. He imposes and sustains and secures the existence of all things that exist, as he is like fundamental reality. And then the only way we can know him is if he takes the initiative to interact with us, which he has done in Christianity. The Bible does not condone that. Grumpy dad, that's ridiculous. You're twisting scriptures to fit your bias of your anger towards the God of Abraham. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Moses? You're going to say that about God? Wow, dude. Wow, why are they so mean? They're so mean to God. They're just like to bully. You guys bully God. Yeah. So God, God, he's the author of life, right? So, like a cop can pull you over. God can take your life, because technically God's been nicer to you than you deserve, right? You deserve. You don't even deserve anything you have. You deserve to like rot in hell, right? But God, he is good, and he treats you better than you deserve. I don't know what you mean by cool. I love them, Dylan. But it doesn't matter if I'm cool with them, right? What matters is like, is Jesus cool with them? So like, I would say if you love someone, you want the best for them. And I can't imagine that particular lifestyle being the best for anyone. It seems like a really bad lifestyle. Like, I'm not saying this to be mean. I'm just saying like we can all agree that like Ernest Hemingway, he would get loaded every day. That's a bad lifestyle. That's like self-destructive behavior, right? That's obvious. Maybe in today's age, being gray isn't so obviously self-destructive as getting loaded like Ernest Hemingway. But I think it is a self-destructive type of behavior, and I would say that if you love someone, you want the best for them, and I would say the best is what Paul says is to either like be single and devote yourself to God, or if you're like a pervert or something, then you should get married and then be perverted within the confines of marriage and potentially like have a family and things like that. I think that's like the best life. And because I think if you love someone, you want the best for them. Like that's what I would want for people. But like, I'm not gonna like force someone to make. You can't force people to choose the right thing. You have to do your best to like edify people, and then then it's like on them. Like you just do your best to edify, and then it's like I can't control what someone chooses. That's on them, and that's between them and Jesus, you know. So that's what I would say about that. They're sacrificing to the false idol of like, what would it be, like bodily autonomy. The false idol of autonomy. So like false idols can take many shapes and forms and sizes. Like money, mammon, the love for money. That's a false idol. Yeah, but Jason, I'm not like that. So that's not like a temptation I have. As they sacrifice their morals to support Trump. True. Trump is like a psycho. But the problem is, um, there's like no perfect. There's no perfect like human attempts at freedom are ultimately like will fail because we only have freedom in Christ. But it doesn't mean that we should like ignore human attempts. Like I think as Christians we should support genuine attempts at freedom. So I don't know. Trump maybe represents that in some ways, but ultimately, I don't know. I'm suspicious of him. But I do think it's good that he's like secured the borders because if we have like criminals in society, then the criminals in society oppress other people and then we don't have freedom. And so I think we should like do our best to achieve like democracy and like everyone gets treated equally and everyone gets a voice. Like that's ideal. We should do our best, but we should also be like realistic that we're in a world of where like culture kind of in heavily influences us. Well, that we're in a broken world of sin, basically, is what I'm saying. We're in a broken world of sin. There's like the world slave system, and then there's like Christ, who frees us from that. but we gotta just be realistic that like there's no. I think we can support politics as long as the movement isn't violent. I don't think we can ever support violence. But then at the same time, it's like I don't know what you do with a situation like the I can't even say like the how they were if there's like ships getting pirate attacks. Like what do you do? I mean, I guess you have to use the military at that point. That's a tough call. Because I feel like violence should never be. I feel like the means corrupt means leads to corrupt ends. The idea that the ends justify the means is not. That doesn't make sense. So if we use violence for peace, like ultimately we're just creating violence. So I don't know what you do. I don't know. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, Cheyenne. Uh, welcome, Logan.
Hello, nice to meet you.
What would you like to say?
I don't know, what would you like to debate on? I guess I'll start by saying I'm an atheist.
Hmm.
And what about yourself?
I'm a Christian.
You're a Christian, wonderful. What led you to Christianity? Do you think you can prove God's existence?
Yeah, I think the evidence supports Christianity.
What would you say the evidence for God's existence is?
So like when you ask me for evidence, you're assuming things. Ask me for evidence, you're assuming things. Like for evidence to be possible, there has to be these rules of thought that if we follow these rules of thought, then we get to truth. That's called logic.
Oh,
And
okay, right, so truth. Okay.
so like for rules to function though, here's the problem. Rules need rule enforcement. Like if you're playing soccer and no one's enforcing the rules and people are just doing whatever the hell they want, the game doesn't function. That's the same
That's
for
absolutely correct. That's correct.
any rule is like that. So the rules of thought, they need like a cosmic referee like God to enforce the rules, or else they're not binding, they don't function, and we couldn't even like talk about evidence or debate or prove anything. So God's necessary for evidence to prove anything at all.
Well, I would say I disagree with you because the universe is not the same as a game of football or soccer, as you call it. I don't think we need
Yeah,
a
but the
cosmic referee.
rules are the same though. Any rule requires rule enforcement. Otherwise, the rule isn't functional. Like I could write a bunch of laws on a piece of paper, but if the police and the judges don't enforce those laws, they don't affect anything. They're functionally like they don't exist. If something doesn't function, it might as well not exist, right? So if the rules of thinking don't function, it's like they might as well not even exist. And if they don't exist, then we can't even prove anything.
Well,
So
what you're saying is like we have rules because we have evolved intelligent human brains, and we figured out that it's much easier to cooperate and live and thrive as a species when we work together and have boundaries and we treat each other as we'd wish to be treated. That's where rules come from. It's an entirely human construct. We don't need a cosmic referee or some derivative of truth like God to function as a society.
well, the problem is you're contradicting yourself now, because when we're talking about like logic, typically we think those are like necessary. We like they don't change. Like I can't just change logic, because if I could just change logic, then I could just change it to be such a thing that it proves God. So we have to. It has to be unchanging, and it has to apply the same as to me as to you. So that can't come from a human mind, because if we just make it up, then that means we just make truth up, and then truth is like a fantasy now.
No, but there doesn't need to be some derivative of truth. There doesn't need to be something that grounds truth in the universe.
Then why would you ask me for evidence of God if you're denying that truth exists?
I think truth is a human concept. It's
That's not real. That's a fantasy. I'm a realist, right? I don't want to like live a fantasy Harry Potter character life or something, right? I want to live in the real world. That's why I'm a Christian.
And that's a good point. One of the comments just said, even if God was the grounding of truth, you'd still then have to prove God is real.
I'm giving you the proof that if you deny God's revealed himself in human history and in like the Bible, if you deny that revelation from God, now we have no access to reality. Now we can't say anything's real, anything's true. We couldn't talk about value.
Yeah, well, I can't say anything for certain like that, but I can be pretty sure of it with the evidence. I can be pretty sure that you're real.
You're not understanding.
I'm talking to you in this debate right now. I can be quite sure that you are real. We don't need a cosmic derivative for truth.
I just explained why we do need that, and you're just ignoring what I'm saying, and you're saying, "Oh, we just don't need that."
No,
hold on. That's a hand wave dismissal. I gave you a devastating, precise argument that you've now completely ignored. So are you just scared of evidence? Are you a coward?
But I asked you for proof of God. So you're saying that there was the Bible says that God revealed himself and that I'm denying God. You have to prove that. You have to prove that.
Don't you? Okay, and you just ignored the proof. Because when you ask for proof,
provided any proof.
Stop.
You haven't provided proof.
I did. The proof was you asking for proof means you're making a claim. You're making the claim that we can prove things without God. How do we prove something without God?
With evidence.
Yeah, but when we look at proof, we typically use empirical evidence, right?
Yes.
There's a school of thought that thinks all truth is we prove things empirically. That's called empiricism. Guess what?
Tell me.
It's incoherent. It doesn't work. It leads to a contradiction. Empiricism doesn't work. You can't. If all we had was empirical proof, we couldn't prove anything. And the other school of thought is rationalism, rational proofs like math. But that doesn't work either because you couldn't get coherence in a world, in like a purposeless, meaningless world. So there's no way to prove anything if you deny revelation, because the only like functional way to prove things is if we use the Bible and God as a standard for truth and a standard for what's right and wrong. There's no other way to prove anything.
Totally understand what you're saying, but that is all contingent on God being real.
You're not understanding.
But you can't prove. No, I respectfully.
When you ask for proof, you're not understanding what I'm saying.
Please, I'll let you speak for just a
second. Can you say God isn't real?
Please just let me get my point in.
Oh my God.
So you're saying that God is the grounding of truth. You therefore have to prove that God exists.
Yes, and the proof is that you can't deny that God without presupposing that God. Because I told you, even asking for proof assumes there's rules. Well, who's enforcing the rules of logic? Who's enforcing those rules? That's not God. You're now making a counterclaim that something else enforces those rules.
You don't need God. You don't need God.
And what enforces the rules of logic?
This is what I was saying earlier.
But now you're making a counterclaim. Do you understand that you're making a counterclaim now?
I'm not saying anything.
Do you understand that you're making a counterclaim now?
What do you mean by that?
You're saying it's my position that God is necessary for evidence. Do you understand that?
I understand that's your position, yes.
Your position is that I can have evidence, no God needed.
Yes, absolutely.
That's a counterclaim.
How is it? You can absolutely have evidence without God.
But
being
you
in-
haven't demonstrated that. You're just asserting that. What's the
Well,
argument for
can
that?
you let me explain then? Can you let me explain? Please,
I've
please.
been asking. I tried to explain to you how that you're
Well,
wrong, and
I
you
already
keep
have. I already
ignoring.
have
But
explained it
hold
earlier.
on, I've explained why you're wrong, and you've ignored what I said. Now go ahead.
What I'm saying is truth and evidence and logic and proof. It's all an entirely human construct. Okay, we use our evolved
Well, then
human
there's no
brains.
truth. No, then
Please,
it's
please, please, please,
fantasy.
please, please, just let me finish. Thank you.
No,
Please, please, just let.
you are finished. And then he goes, "Oh, truth is a fantasy." Why am I arguing with you if you don't even believe in truth? You're just anime debating me, dude. I'm a realist. You gotta appeal to reality. I'm not gonna sit here and like debate about your fantasy. But I think Goku is stronger than Vegeta. Does it say anime debate? I thought it was like implicit that we debate reality, okay? We don't anime debate. Nothing wrong with anime debating. That's not what I do here. Welcome.
Yo, what up, bro?
What up?
Real quick. I believe that truth can exist without God.
Can you
I
prove
know you
it, or
can.
you just think that you don't care about evidence, or
I'm gonna get to that.
oh
You were talking about the whole like who enforces the law of logic and all that, and
yes,
I think the best explanation for all that, without God, is that they're part of the universe, right? Logic is an intrinsic part of the universe. It is the universe. It makes
that's a
up what we.
contradiction
How so?
because the universe is contingent and logic is necessary.
What do you mean the
So
universe is contingent? The universe is necessary as well
how do you know that?
because you need because the combination of space and time is what we perceive as the universe.
Did the universe tell you that it was eternal?
No, but we have theories that it is.
No, no one. No, people think the universe is contingent.
Uh, uh, I don't think so.
Who says the universe? What theory? Can I Google this? Where can I learn about how we prove that the universe is necessary?
It's.
Why are you lying to me?
I'm not. I'm not. I mean,
Yes, you are. There's no proof that the universe is necessary. You're just lying. What's the proof? I'll Google it right now.
how does everything exist without a universe?
Why are you lying to me?
How does everything exist without a universe? Tell me that.
No, prove the universe. You made a claim the universe is necessary. I'm just
Okay, and
going to
here's
move on. You're just bullshitting me.
don't skip it,
All right,
bro.
have a nice day. I have to prove God, right? They're gonna hold my feet to the fire to prove God, and of course, no matter what we say, it's never good enough for them, right? But then they make, oh, just the universe is necessary. Well, what's the proof of that? Well, it just is, dude. Well, okay. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's when it comes to God, no evidence is ever good enough. Anything but God. But then, oh, the universe is just necessary. Oh, yeah, I can just use logic. Oh, science, yeah, I can just do it. Just do it, dude. Don't need evidence for why I can do it. Just do it. Just do it. It work. I do. Well, God work. I just do God, right? God just is. God just works, guys. Yeah. I can pray to God right now. Now it works. Therefore, God. Welcome.
Welcome. This is my live now. Let me take over.
No.
Yes, here's how it's going to go. Everybody, come follow my page. I'll be live every Monday through Friday. We'll be
They're really rude, man.
we'll be having debates every night. Everybody's welcome. It's very fun, very entertaining. Everybody. Yo, thanks for the gifts. I appreciate that. You know, there's much gifts in my life, you know. How's it going, buddy?
What would you like to say?
No, it's what would you like to say? This is my life. We're gonna switch things up here. Okay. You can
Who is your
go.
daddy and what does he do?
Whoa. Is that your question? Well, my daddy is actually a scientist. He works for NASA.
Have you ever read a book?
Does Cat in the Hat count?
Yeah, was that the last book you read?
Green eggs and ham.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
ever think maybe like you should read more books so you could be like interesting to talk to?
And you're interesting. You got 19 people in here, buddy. Don't start talking.
Well, entertain us.
You're the one supposed to be entertaining. You brought it up, dude.
I thought it's your show.
Oh yeah, I guess. My show's pretty shitty, ain't it?
Yeah, maybe you
18
should
people.
read. Maybe it'd be better if you read some books.
It's about to be 9, I know, bro.
Oh my goodness, dude.
Half the people in here are asleep.
Mm-hmm.
For real, bro. I'm surprised you haven't kicked me yet. This is fucking...
Me too.
You're just letting me go.
Oh my god.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Where do they grow these people? For the same reason, we cannot endorse the attitude which consists in wanting freedom and isolation, all the bonds that bind us to others being severed. This attitude differs from the preceding one in the sense that no attempt is made to exploit others, but they are regarded as an obstacle to personal freedom, as in fact they always are, and hence there is a break with them and a withdrawal from them. This is the attitude of a superb romantic individualism. And it is no less fatal than the first one. We cannot support the man who affirms his freedom by scorning the vulgar herd. Wasn't I like way farther than this? The desire to maintain freedom by separation from others can, of course, have two aspects. In effect, the man who tries in this way to cut his determination by others may do it only to achieve distance, which enables him to practice love and live by it. Okay, so what we're talking about here, remember how Jesus says, like, to kind of like hate your family? He's talking about love. That means sort of like love less, or like it's a preference thing. He's saying that, like, sometimes, like, our family can determine our life, and that as a Christian, I don't have to like listen necessarily to what my parents say. I have to listen to what Jesus says. So it's like I'm severed sort of from the authority of my parents. And this is also shown when Jesus' mother and his brothers and sisters come to him in the desert, and they're like, Jesus, you're nuts, you're possessed by a demon, come back to sense and live with us. And Jesus says, he kind of like dismisses them. He's really dismissive of his mom. And he says, like, who's my real family? And it's like, he says, like, the people with him in his community is his family. So people don't talk about this, but there's actually sort of an anti-family message in the Bible, that we don't have to like let our families control us. We're freed in Christ to obey a higher authority. Lord.
Good morning, P. March. How are you?
Good morning.
I bid you good morrow. So, I can see that you're just completely unaware of the word sacrifice and its meaning.
I don't really like want to debate semantics.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm not debating the semantics with you. I can just tell that you don't know what the word sacrifice means.
Okay, I don't care what your opinion is, right? Because you have no standard.
Oh, sorry. Do you not know who Binkus Bonkus is?
Okay. Well, thanks for coming, Forrest.
All right. Holy Spirit's a child rapist.
Okay. There we go. This is atheism. Yeah, we got real mature adults on the other side, right? Real mature. Highly, that's like so intellectual too, right? So intellectual and mature. Emotional intelligence, like they're all like perfect angels. It's too bad they're not Christians, because honestly, they're pretty much all Jesus. Like every atheist I met is essentially perfect and Jesus. Like it's just too bad they're not Christians, because they're all perfect. They all condemn. They all tell everyone else like how they're wrong and shit because they're perfect. You know, it's crazy. It's too bad they're not Christians though. This desire to maintain freedom by separation from others can, of course. Wait, did I just read this? No, I didn't. The desire to maintain freedom by separation from others can, of course, have two aspects. In effect, the man who tries in this way to cut his determination to others may do it to achieve the distance which enables him to practice love and live by it. He means like freedom. Like when we detach from our family, we get sort of a freedom to follow Christ. After all, Jesus tells us to sever the human ties which bind us to others, for example, parents or children, and the Good Samaritan breaks the bonds which tie him to his environment and interests in order that he may live in love. This implies, in effect, an element of distance from others. In this case, we have freedom, which is oriented to love and which has been forcefully illumined by Christ. We may thus support the man who seeks freedom in this way, aid him without taking him under our tutelage, and follow him along his path without leading him to ours, realizing that our companionship in his effort is precisely the secret stamp of freedom in Christ on his enterprise, that this will finally be approved by Christ himself. Okay. So we're supposed to like help people. What is he saying here? Like we're supposed to help people that are seeking freedom or something like that. We're supposed to help people on their path, not to make them do our path or something like that. Forrest, you're requesting up again. Dude, I don't know, man. You're pretty vulgar. Like, I give you lots of chances, and every time I give you a chance, you just be vulgar and, like, ridiculous. Explain this to me. Think I should block him? I don't really like to block people, though. Because Jesus said to, like, forgive 70 times 7. What? Why is that blocked? In fact, let's do some Jubilee. Yeah, some Jubilee. I'm unblocking people. Jubilee, you're free. Welcome.
Hey, what's up, brother? I'm Muslim.
Uh-oh. I probably shouldn't. I don't think I should really talk. I get banned if I talk to Muslims. So
Are you scared?
by TikTok, and honestly, I am a little bit scared because I don't want like to get my head
Brother,
chopped off.
brother, we have head chopped off. Are you talking about your Bible? What your Bible says? That's what your Bible says.
Okay.
You want me to show you?
I'm kind of afraid. I don't know.
You-
Maybe it's better we just.
Are you afraid to see that apostasy capital punishment in your Bible?
Yeah, I don't want to become a martyr today. So maybe we
Well,
should like agree to disagree.
brother, your Bible says that if anybody tries to get you to worship another god, to stone them with your own hands.
Does it?
Yeah, you want to see?
Where do the? Can you give me an example in reality of a Christian that does that?
Oh no, I can give you an example in your biblical
'Cause
scripture. It's
I
probably
can give
better.
you there's something that happened in India recently, so
Oh
I can
no,
give
in
you.
Islam, Islam, we believe in that law that was ordained by Allah. We don't run
There's
from that.
this international incident you guys
Oh,
caused
great. Yeah.
recently.
Yeah.
What can you show me where the Christians causing international incidents like
Can I show you where
similar?
Jesus revealed the law to unalive
Why
people if
don't
they
Christians treat people like the way
Brother, are you
the
running from the Bible
Muslims?
passage?
One, you're running from reality.
No, I'm trying to provide you a passage that
Yeah, but
refutes.
then it's gonna be based on your interpretation.
No,
But
it
like,
literally says,
let's talk about what's going on in politics right now. So,
okay, we can do
where
that
are
for
the
sure.
Christians in the world that are unaliving people because they're not
Oh,
Christian? Can you
yeah,
show me?
and in Africa, the
Really?
National African Army. You want to look that up?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Here, let's like.
It's a literal Christian terrorist group in Africa that unalives anybody that doesn't agree with their identity of Christianity.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that's their name. It's the African. It's either the African Christ Army or the African Christian Army, something like that.
You said the National African Army.
Something like that. You'll find it. Just go ahead, type it in. African Christian National, whatever, bro. You'll find it. It's
There,
easy. They're a terrorist group.
there is no evidence or credible reports indicating that any National African Army is systematically unaliving people for not being Christian.
Bro, so are we going to sit here and talk about what?
3-1? Why 3-1? Why 3-1? Why 3-1? Why God pray God? Why God pray God? Welcome.
You good?
Yeah.
Good. So, at what point would you say Christianity is objectively proven?
Like, so when you ask that question, you got baked in assumptions that there's these like rules of thought, and if we obey the rules of thought, we'll like get to truth. But it's like, for rules to function, you needed a referee. You couldn't play soccer without a referee because someone could just pick the ball up and then take the ball home and ruin the game because there's no rules. So we need functional rules to prove anything, and that's going to need a cosmic referee like God to enforce those rules.
Okay. So, what rules prove God then? If you need rules.
So the rules of thought, like logic. So like, what would enforce the rules of thought? What cosmic referee do you have that's not the Christian God? You'd have nothing. So the very question you ask already is baked in, like God exists, just to ask that question. So you can't rationally deny God. It's impossible to deny God because to even prove anything, you would need God to enforce the rules of thought.
But you're doing that based on the idea you believe God exists.
But you're the one.
believe.
But you're the one who asked, "What's the one who asked, what's the proof?" Which assumed we can prove things. But hold on, you assumed by asking that question it's possible to prove things. If it's possible to prove things, something has to enforce the rules that we use to prove things. So you're saying it's not rules that we use to prove things. So you're saying it's not God. You're making a counterclaim. So what is it that's not God that enforces the rules of thought so that you can prove anything?
Well, anything can be any rules. It doesn't have to be a God that has set the rules or referees the rules. Life can. So, for example, if I stop breathing, what happens?
You would go unconscious, and then when you're unconscious, you would start breathing again.
Exactly, but who sets the rules for me to breathe?
God.
No, I set the rules for me to breathe. I decide whether I'm currently going to breathe or not, not God.
To breathe, there has to be uniformity in nature, and God would have to make the uniformity of nature real so that you could breathe.
But again, if you're assuming that God controls everything, right? Then you're not
Because
objecting.
even you breathing relies on a rule of nature.
But I can literally.
But
say
exactly, and so who enforces that rule of nature that it's necessary for you to breathe? And again, we have God. So no matter where you turn, you're screwed. You can't hide from God. He's God. You're done.
No, that makes no sense.
You're done.
No sense.
How does it not make sense? You asked me for proof. Proof requires rules.
You haven't
rules. Okay. Do rules require
rules and football?
Where are we losing? Where are you where's the logic? Where are we departing on the logic train here? So are you denying that there's rules of thought? Are you denying that?
Yes, of course there are rules of thought.
Okay, we're on board there. Now, are you denying that rules require rule enforcement to function?
No.
No. So
of course not.
Rules of thought.
Rules get
you agree.
all of the time.
Rules require rule enforcement. You agree. So
no,
my position is that God enforces the rules, and He has the necessary attribute set to enforce those rules. So that makes sense.
So right, but I answered your question. You just went off with what you wanted me to answer.
I'm confused. Where are you not understanding? I'm making an argument here. You don't seem to understand it. Where are we getting confused on the argument?
You asked me the same question, and I said no.
So you agree?
Carried on like I said yes.
What? Can you focus? You agree there's rules. You agree the rules need rule enforcement to function.
No, I don't agree the rules need rule enforcement.
What?
Of course they don't. Rules are broken all of the time.
Okay, well, if I don't have to follow the rules of logic, then I'll just say God exists because God exists.
Well, that's what you do.
Okay, well, there you go. Well, we don't have to follow the rules of logic. There you go. Done. God exists because God exists. We don't have to follow the rules of logic. He's the one who said that. So there you go. Done. Main idea. Okay, so sometimes people separate themselves from others not to escape love, but to make room for it. When someone creates space to love more freely and deeply, that kind of distance is actually a good kind of freedom. So not all separation is selfish. Some people isolate themselves to avoid others. That's not real freedom. That's fear or pride. But others step back from certain relationships or systems because they're trying to live in a more loving and truthful way. For example, leaving a toxic family dynamic or a social bubble that prevents you from loving people outside of it. Okay? Yeah, so it's not like being selfish if someone's abusing you to like separate yourself from that, like obviously, right? Or sometimes we get trapped in echo chambers or social circles, and if you just talk to like the same 5 people every day, then that's not like growth, right? And you're not. We should meet new people, be open to new experiences, new beginnings. Welcome, God.
How are you doing?
What would you like to say?
I think I just wanted to ask you, because I was a little confused on what you thought. Do you think God is controlling all things?
He would sustain all things. He sustains and imposes existence. You're like your identity.
So he does control all things.
Well, no, like humans can do things, right? Like he doesn't control your choice. But
so you think that you're separate from God?
I think you have a free will because God, like, it's according to God's plan. Like he created you to have a free will, and he sustains like reality that you have a free will and your identity. So he enables these things, all things, to be possible, but you can still make your own choices. He doesn't like control your choice. So
Are you familiar with general relativity?
No.
So in general relativity,
What does this have to do with anything?
it has directly to do with free will.
No, it doesn't, because science doesn't make claims about metaphysics. Free will is about metaphysics. It's a different category. You're making a mistake.
I'm a lot smarter than you think I am.
Okay,
So
well,
do you want to hear
you're
what I have to
making
say?
you're making a really stupid mistake. Science doesn't make claims about metaphysics. Free will is a metaphysical category. You're making a category error.
I'm going to tell you one more time. I'm a lot smarter than you think I am.
You're going to hell. Jesus himself talked about this kind of distance. We're talking about like if someone's abusive distance, or no, not just that. We're talking like sometimes that when you become a Christian, you're like following Christ, and you're not following maybe like what your family and friends want you to do, and that creates like a sort of separation. But it's not, you're not separating out of like hatred. It's a separation because you're trying to take a step back and get a higher perspective, and that would enable you to like love and live better. So Jesus himself talked about this kind of distance. Jesus said, "Leave father and mother to follow him," in Luke 14:26. Not hate literally, but reorder loyalties. So the Good Samaritan left behind his regular path and routine to stop and help a stranger. That act of love broke him free from what normally defined him: race, class, religion, etc. So this kind of separation is about making space for love, not running away from people. So support people who are walking that road, even if it's not your path. If someone is clearly trying to live more freely so they can love better, don't try to control them or put them into your way. Walk with them, not over them. Just being a quiet, supportive companion to that kind of person is already a Christian act. Alol says your support is like a quiet seal from Jesus that says, "This is the kind of freedom I bless." So some people pull back from others just to avoid them. That's not good. But others step back so they can love better and more freely. That's Christ-like. When you see someone doing that, don't control them. Walk beside them. Your support is part of their freedom in Christ. Yeah, usually people, like, when they support you, they just tell you, like, the Bible says this, and you're doing that. You shouldn't do that. You're bad. I know what's best. I'm a better Christian than you, so you just listen to me, because I read the Bible, and you should do this. I freaking can't. I hate control freaks, man. But the thing is, like, because we're in a mass society, people feel powerless, because that's, in reality, we're all like, we have no power. We're in a mass society. So like, you don't really matter. Your voice doesn't really matter. Your vote doesn't matter. So no one cares about your opinion. That's true. That's just the truth. So people feel powerless, and because people feel powerless, they develop this like subconscious obsession with power. That's why you see how like people are obsessed with even being like a moderator in a stupid like TikTok live, because like that's that little bit of power, like they get off on it, dude. It's crazy. But power corrupts. You shouldn't seek power. You should be happy you don't have power. You can have, I guess you could have like power in Christ, right? That's a different type of power. It's like the power of non-power. Because Christ didn't come and conquer, right? although he will. But there's there's more than one way to skin a cat, and I think Jesus shows us like a non-violent way to change the world through like love and service. We Christianity spread because of not by like the sword, but because of like love and acts of love and service, and people see that and then they want to be a part of that. An action of pure independence, however, does not have the same features. In this case, we may have the claim of a man or group to be living on the margin without taking part in the activities of society or of other men, etc. This break is illusory and cannot be approved because of the implied contempt for those who live as others do. He's talking about like living alone in the woods. How many little movements, especially those which are opposed to technical progress and the march of civilization, finally share this attitude, which can yield only paltry results in view of the belief that freedom rests on a break and inversion that are not truly oriented to love which wins others, this solitude being ultimately sterile. I guess like Amish people kind of do that, and like the Mennonites. The independence sought by women or children is of the same order. Women is here regarded as the last colony, to use the phrase of G. Tillin. We thus have the strong movement so familiar to us today, for example, the fight against the subjection of woman to man and the assertion of a wife's independence from her husband. Similarly, children are struggling to establish their independence of parents, or even their superiority over them. In order that they may develop their personalities, it is claimed, they must be granted liberty, autonomy, and freedom from all guidance or constraint. It may be noted that these movements adorn with concepts and ideology some simple and well-known realities, for example, the working woman, the husband without personal authority, the family unity that has lost any meaning, place, or function in the modern socio-cultural system. Parents who are so harassed with work that they no longer have any effective time for their children. Interests which give each member of the family a life of his own. Individual means of transport that separate them. And the fusion of each into the same other the fusion of each member of the family into some other sociological grouping. These and other facts explain the movements for liberation of women and children, and ideological pronouncements count for little, although it is on them that interest usually focuses. So they did this with like TV shows. I noticed when I was growing up, that's like, people don't realize how technology controls us. They're just putting that TV in your house. So there'd be like a TV in the living room, and then a TV in the bedroom. And then my dad would come home, right, and he'd watch his sports, the TV shows that men watch, right, like sports or like news or whatever. Dad watches his sports in one room, and then my mom, she's watching her like the women's soap operas, or she's watching her women's pro. So they had different TV shows for different genders, and so that separates. So like even though they're living in the same house, they're in two different rooms watching two different TV shows, and it creates discord, right? They're not like sharing activities now. The main point here, however, is to ascertain whether the attainment of independence will lead women or children to true freedom. There are two possibilities for women. They may go out to work, or they may remain unemployed. A career for women is often extolled as a way of permitting self-fulfillment. In reality, we have here another fictional notion advanced in justification of a fact. In by far the majority of cases, women have boring and meaningless jobs which demand no rich qualifications and contribute nothing to the development of personality. Work is an absurd constraint and obligation. Women find no fulfillment in it than at home. Or women find no more fulfillment in work than at home. There are, of course, two definite advantages. The first is that they come into contact with more people, and the second, that they have their own money. As regards the first, however, there are already plenty of neighborhood contacts, while as regards the second, a new independence is substituted for the old one, since the employer now supplies money instead of the husband. But the relation to the employer is hardly a liberating, stabilizing, or joyous one. In reality, all that women do here is to come under the bondage which afflicts all workers, namely, a bondage to a universal social and economic system and to employers. We have a change of dependence, not a full attainment of freedom. That's I've never heard anyone say that, but that is actually true, right? It's like, okay, so you don't depend on your husband for money, you depend on your employer. Like, meet the old boss, same as the new, or what is it? Out with the old boss, or meet the new boss, same as the old boss, or something like that. I can't remember the saying. So it's just like you're just shifting grains of sand, or there's no real change, there's no real liberation here. But it's like pseudo liberation. And I think there's another problem when he talks about like when women are in the workforce, they're in contact with more people, but that actually leads to a lot of affairs. Like so many affairs start at the workplace. So actually having women in the workplace leads to more affairs, which breaks apart families, and it's almost like, see, like my cats are dependent on me, right? I feed them, I clean their litter, I take care of them. So there's a dependence relationship, but it's not like bad because that's how we bond. Like, because they rely on me for food, they're bonded to me. That's how we have a relationship. It's not like bad necessarily, right? So like just because the woman is maybe dependent on the husband for money, that's not necessarily like a bad thing. That can encourage like a good relationship. And like, wouldn't you rather be dependent on your family than to be dependent on some like employer? P Mars, can I spend your money and you do all the housework? Yeah, that's what every girl I date is like. They just want money all the time. Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
What would you like to
Um,
say?
so I genuinely have a question here. I was saying it in the comments before you let me up. But if AB is the destruction of a life and God creates life and God has a plan, then was the death of the fetus not just a facet of God's plan?
Not if a human is the cause, because then it's because humans have free will. We have responsibility for our actions, so you'd be responsible for that.
So what does
On a,
God's plan mean exactly? Because I genuinely don't know.
that his will, like he there's like this divine counsel, and he wills certain things to be the case. Like he plans for like creation, redemption, and then there'll be like heaven.
So why did he will for like the destruction of a fetus?
What are you talking about?
Why why is that possible?
Because, well, originally everything was good, but then Adam and Eve rebelled against God, and so creation and everything got corrupted. But because God values our freedom, He allows us to make mistakes, and He has a plan to fix everything through Christ. So if you repent and you turn to faith in Christ, then you won't be condemned to hell, which you
Okay.
deserve.
So my next question would be, how can you objectively prove Christianity? Is it like scientific method or what?
I use something called like the transcendental argument for God. So I could say something like the scientific method requires there to be like consistency and patterns in the world, and then those patterns are gonna require like a causal agent like God to put the patterns in the world, or else the patterns would be fake that we just imagine the patterns from our mind. So God's necessary for the rational order to nature that's required to do the scientific experiment. So he's a necessary precondition for science. Science is possible, therefore God.
So we now have science, like, has been proven with scientific method that kind of undermines the existence of God. Like neuroscience specifically undermines free will.
Sure. But science isn't the absolute truth, right? Science can be wrong, so.
But if God willed for like the science to be there, if he willed for the patterns to exist, how can it be wrong?
Because humans are flawed. What do you mean? Humans can easily be wrong.
Okay,
Science has been wrong all the time. Have you not?
Yeah, but beyond like beyond that, if we can prove it with like scientific method, if we can, use multiple different patterns to prove its existence,
But
like
scientific truths are just provisional truths. So we might discover a new scientific experiment tomorrow that proves free will, right?
No, because it doesn't exist.
Well, you're just lying. I don't know if I really want to talk to you right now because you just lied to me.
How am I lying?
Because scientific truths are subject to change to new evidence. So if new evidence comes out tomorrow that proves that we have a free will, then the scientific truth would change. And you just said no, so you just lied. Because what I said is true, and you're a liar.
So we can't reinvent the wheel, right?
Are you going to deal with your lie? Or are you going to admit you lied?
So I don't necessarily. I understand why you're saying that, but in science like neuroscience, where we have like the patterns to prove something,
are you going to deal with your lie, or are we just going to gloss over your lie,
guys? There's not.
Can you address the lie?
How would you like me to address?
Can you did you lie to me?
No,
is
I don't
it
think I
not
did.
true?
Not
is
in the
it
context of
true?
neuroscience.
Is it not the case that we could discover neuroscientists could make a breakthrough tomorrow that proves free will? Is that not true?
Not with that specific case, no, sir.
Why are you lying?
I'm not lying.
Why not in that specific case?
Yeah, because we know that the brain projects information at a 0.5
second. Okay, all right, listen. How old are you?
I'm 24.
Okay, I'm 63. Right now, you are totally bullshitting and you are lying. Okay.
How am I bullshitting?
Let me explain to you. If you actually listen or even were to interview some of the greatest experts on human consciousness, some of whom, like David Chalmers, is an atheist, right? They're utterly baffled about the foundational nature of human consciousness. So when people say we know X, right? When you're talking about certain things that are highly controversial, you know that they're lying. You don't know that, okay?
So Darth,
so listen to me carefully. Listen carefully. I'm a moderator here.
Okay.
I came into the room. P. Mars was quite agitated that you're lying to him. If you lie to me, I'm gonna get really pissed. Okay. Human consciousness is utterly baffling in terms of its ultimate foundation.
I'm not talking about consciousness here, sir. I'm talking about human awareness, which is distinctly different.
When we talk about consciousness,
I'm not talking about consciousness.
Please don't be rude.
I'm not being rude.
Okay, please don't be rude. I wasn't finished. So when we talk about human consciousness and its utter foundation, right, that includes awareness, and it includes the concept as to whether we have agency or not. Okay? Now, it is not a fact of neuroscience that we don't have a will.
Yes, it is.
Okay, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Okay, you're done.
Bye.
You see, they're pathological liars.
Well, I would say that everything science indicates is that indicate that we don't have free will.
Say that again?
Scientific discoveries lead to that there is no free will. That's what science would say, but that doesn't mean it's true. But that's
No, no, but that's incorrect
are you?
because
Well,
that would
then
be a
my research is wrong. I don't what so.
they haven't there's nothing that they have discovered that shows that we don't have free will.
That's incorrect, Darth.
Oh, okay. Give me an example of what you're talking about. Of what scientific discovery has shown we don't have free will?
I don't know any specific examples. So Elul talks about this in the book I'm reading. He talks about like all science indicates like determinisms and
No, that's simply incorrect.
I can't imagine Elul's wrong
All
on
of
that.
science indicates determinism. Well, that would include our ability to reason at all.
Like
And if
sociology, I think he's referring to like sociology, like the fact that our culture influences us.
no, what he may be talking about, right, is that a lot of scientists are heading toward determinism. Why? Because they're materialists themselves. But scientific discoveries or investigations aren't showing that we don't have free will. I mean, that's just patently ridiculous. It may be the case that many scientists are materialists, right? I mean, there are numerous brain experiments. Okay, it doesn't mean that we don't have a free will.
Well, but science, I would say, is leaning towards that our free will is limited by like unconscious processes in biology and physics.
No.
Yeah, it is. You're wrong.
No. Okay. Well, how does science? What do you talk? Are you talking about the soft sciences or the hard sciences?
I would say both.
Okay. Well, give me an example in either one.
There's the neuroscience, like that guy brought up.
Yeah, it doesn't show we don't have our free will.
Shows activity precedes conscious awareness of decisions, suggesting unconscious process may initiate actions.
Our agency can be intricately intertwined with our physical activity. It doesn't mean we don't have agency.
In behavioral sciences, experiments in behavioral economics.
That's the soft science.
Yeah, those are going to show determination.
No, it doesn't.
What do you mean?
When you go into the soft scientists, you're being far less scientific.
Okay, but
the hard sciences don't. Look, do you understand that? And this is something you could put money on. The top people in the field in human consciousness, even a number of them that are.
Yeah, but that's metaphysics.
No. I didn't finish. The top people in studying human consciousness, okay? They're utterly baffled as to what the root and foundation is of consciousness, and that would include agency.
Yeah, but you're talking about metaphysics.
You see, what you're doing
you just did a bait and switch on me.
No, I'm not doing a bait and switch. What I'm saying to you is this is the fact that that a lot of scientists lean in the direction of determinism and materialism is not in dispute. The fact that individual discoveries or experiments show we're not agents, no, it does not.
I disagree.
Okay, good. Give me an example that demonstrates we don't have agency.
I wouldn't say it demonstrates. Like I would say it suggests. Like I don't think it definitively.
No, a suggestion would be an interpretive scheme. The bottom line is like, there are many neurological researchers who don't think that they reject the notion that we don't have agents. Okay, that agency. The fact that some do, so what? Look, for example, I could use the analogy of
that's
a car.
That's all my claim. All my claim would be is that, like, what science and like sociology and psychology, these things.
Yeah, when you start getting into generalizations like that, that's where you start to get into trouble. Okay, anybody does, right? Unless you can back it up by hard, repeated specifics.
Philosophers want to say there's a free will, and scientists want to say that we're determined.
No,
Yes.
okay. That is an incorrect statement.
It's
What you should,
not.
no, that's an incorrect statement, and here's why. What you should say is materialist-oriented scientists want to say that, because there are scientists who are not materialist who don't say that. Okay.
No, you're not understanding what I'm saying. I'm saying there's science. Science shows we have a free will, not like their science man opinion. They're
Science does
scientific
not show.
experiments.
Science cannot show that we don't have a free will. Because
It's evidence, scientific. It's not
all
definitive.
all evidences are interpreted.
Right. I get it.
All observations are inherently theory laden.
Right.
Okay.
Like, but so
let me give
yeah,
you an
but
example. Let me
I
give you an
understand
example.
that. But we
Let me give you-
I disagree with evolution, but I'm not going to
Let
say
me-
evolution isn't a science. So, like, I don't know why you would like deny that they're doing
No,
this
science is too broad of a term. You should say that it's a theoretical construct within the realm of science.
I'm not that precise with my
Well,
language.
so for example, suppose we have a person inside of a car, right? And we use that as an analogy for neurology and consciousness, right? There can be events inside the car, the way the car works, that occur before the person in the car reacts, okay? And it may be the case that there are certain neurological activities that precede a seemingly conscious act that we make. It doesn't equate that we don't have agency. It means that our agency is intertwined and at a foundational level, which is beyond our scope to understand it, interfacing with that physicality. It doesn't mean that there are certain physical precursors to conscious events of agency. It doesn't follow from that we don't have agency. It just means that sometimes there are neurological precursors to our certain conscious activities. We have to differentiate between actual sense datum in science versus.
But your argument doesn't make modern scientific research disappear.
Hold on a second.
So I don't know why you think that. So I just think that's weird.
You have to differentiate between that sense datum and interpretations. All observations inherently.
But I understand. I'm not disagreeing with your argument. I'm just saying, like, you're just like ignoring that there's this modern scientific research that says.
I'm not ignoring anything.
Well, all my point is, I'm not saying it's true.
You got to be careful.
It doesn't. But Darth,
literally, we are gonna be like fucking with Portuguese.
It doesn't matter, like, if
You got
it's
to be
true.
careful when you make broad, sweeping generalizations.
Okay, but there's modern scientific research that indicates that we don't have a free will. That's true. I don't know why you would argue against that.
Well, good. You give me a paper or research that says that.
Okay, I'll DM it to you.
I'd love to read it. I mean, do you understand that every observation is governed and constricted by theories? Right?
Free Will Without Consciousness by Lyad Murdoch, Uri Mawaz, Aaron Sugar. All right. Is this a link to it? All right. Gotcha. I DM'd you the paper.
And what does the paper purport to show?
The paper explores whether free will can exist without conscious awareness, examining neuroscientific evidence like Libet's experiment and newer studies on decision making. It discusses whether unconscious brain processes undermine free will, or if conscious deliberation still
Oh
plays a
yeah,
role.
well we're creatures of habit. We have, when you say unconscious, what are you talking about, like a Freudian unconscious, or are you talking about lower level consciousness versus higher level consciousness?
I don't know. Like I didn't
Okay,
write
because
this.
look. Suppose two people are playing chess, right? And one of the chess players is tapping his fingers on the table, and the other chess player says, "Would you mind not doing that?" And he says, "What? You're tapping your fingers on the table." And he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't aware that I was doing that." Now, of course he was aware that he was doing it. He just didn't have a higher awareness because he was focusing on the chess playing.
Okay,
Because if he
Darth,
can I
the
finish,
problem
please?
is I
Can
don't know
I
why you're.
finish, please? Can I
But
finish,
I
please?
don't understand why you're trying to argue with
Can
me.
I finish, please?
Okay.
Now, when he says I wasn't aware, if he truly was not aware, he would say, "What are you talking about? I wasn't tapping my fingers on the table." He was aware, but his awareness was at a very low conscious state as opposed to a higher one. We have very low level ways of thinking consciously that we're not hyper aware of. Okay? But it's not like a Freudian unconscious where our brains are doing things. Right?
Oh, so then the scientific research doesn't exist because of this argument?
That's not what I'm saying.
Well, then
What
I don't
I'm
understand what's the point of this. I'm not. All I'm claiming.
why are you being so belligerent and argumentative?
Because you're pissing me off.
No, because I'm disagreeing with you. I'm not
No,
being.
but you're being
I'm not being rude
ridiculous.
to you.
But you're being ridiculous.
No, I'm not.
I think you are.
I'm not. No, I'm disagreeing with you, and I'm not being rude or belligerent with you, am I?
No, but you're being ridiculous.
Based upon what?
All I'm saying is there's scientific research.
And I'm disagreeing with you. How am I being ridiculous?
Because your argument. So because of that argument, that disagreement. So now the research doesn't exist.
I didn't say. Where did I say there isn't research? Okay,
that's all I'm saying. I don't believe. I believe we have a free will. You understand that?
Right? You have to be careful in your terminology when you talk about research. All sense datum is subject to various levels of theoretical and interpretive schemes. All of it. If I say to you the sky is blue, is that observation not theory laden?
I know this, so I don't know why you're telling me this.
Right. So any experiments that we do into human and neurological activity, even seemingly activities that may precede somebody exhibiting conscious awareness, it doesn't falsify human agency.
Right, and I'm not sure why you're saying this, and this is why I'm getting pissed, because this is totally irrelevant. So that's cool.
How is it irrelevant?
Because the scientific research disappeared. Because it's interpreted through a paradigm. So now because it's interpreted through a paradigm. So now evolution is interpreted through a paradigm. Therefore, scientific research doesn't exist now.
That's not what I said.
Well, I don't understand the argument. The only
when you generalize, when you say scientific research, that can include in that little basket any number of things. A lot of people think scientific. When you say scientific research, it deals with cold, hard facts and their interpretations as follow. That's not necessarily the case.
Okay. Well, I don't see how this is relevant, but okay.
Okay, any type of sense datum that is within the basket of so-called scientific research, all are multi-layers of interpretive schemes.
Do you not want to talk to this guy? Do you have an issue with this guy?
Well, I don't even know why he's here. I mean, he can explain himself. So, Ozzy, do you want to explain how you completely flipped where you were totally supportive of me? And then you backstabbed me. You want to explain that?
I already did.
No, actually, you didn't. You never explained your flip flop. Okay. You said, "Oh, I heard you say backstab." Okay. No, I didn't hear you say that. Well, that was a lie.
What part was a lie?
You said, "Oh, that you misheard me saying that Hallowed backstabbed me, or that I said backstab."
No, that's not what
You
happened.
were on a stream before saying you heard the whole thing. I discussed the backstabbing. I said the
That's two
backstabbing,
different
and you
things.
were complete. Look, are you going to lie as a professing believer?
Nope.
Okay, good. So you completely flip flopped 180 degrees. You went on at length about how you completely agreed with me and how they had completely mistreated me. And then you said you turned on me because you then recalled, or that you heard that I said backstabbing, and you turned on me because I said backstab. You remember that?
No, because that's not what happened.
That it? Okay. All right. You're gone. Okay. You're absolutely lying. See you later. Block his account. You're absolutely lying at this point. You are one twisted individual. Wow. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I don't even know why he's up here, because he knew what was going to come about. Wyatt, don't try to antagonize me. You're going to get blocked.
Yeah, guys, don't use first names. That's just weird.
See, he just came up on stage and he was absolutely lying.
Yeah, I didn't see what happened.
The level of lying that just came out of his mouth is just unbelievable. He went on at length. I forget whose stream it was, either mine or somebody else's, but I think it was mine. Going on at length about he completely supported me, about how Hallowed had turned on me, and how they'd mistreated me, and that I had not what was it? Was it Hallowed? I'm trying to remember who it was. Yeah, I think it was Hallowed. About how under no stretch of the imagination was I trying to bully him. I was just simply repeatedly telling him, you didn't properly mod me, right? And then he said later on, Aussie that is, that he was fully supportive of me, but he misheard that I'd said to Hallowed that he had backstabbed me. And that's when he turned on me. And then right now he said that he didn't say that. So, I mean, we're dealing with some kooky people, even on the Thea side.
Yeah, there's lots of embarrassing.
No,
There's no shortage of
it's not a
embarrassing
rage.
Christians.
Look, it's a common loot. It's not a rage quit. Okay, I'm perfectly calm. I can get indignant and agitate. Doesn't mean it's rage. All right. When people outright lie, then there's no point in dealing with them any further. Okay. It's one thing if people, like right now, P. Mars and I were having an ongoing dispute over the issue. Do I think that he's lying? No. Right. But clearly we strongly disagree on that issue. Ozzy was clearly lying. And when you lie in human interactions, that's a very bad thing, because there's a very basic social contract that when we communicate to each other, we will be truthful. All right? It's a very important basic social contract. That's why in the area of jurisprudence, okay, there's a strong penalty for people lying in courts. Welcome, Tab.
Hey, buddy.
Look,
no, I sat there and I watched
hold on
him.
a second. People in the chat, if you try to antagonize me, you're just going to get your accounts blocked.
No, I sat there and watched him tell the others how At one point, he did defend you, and then all of a sudden, he didn't defend you. But I had like a run in him from the very start when I was discussing what I believe about Calvinism.
Are you talking
And
about
then,
Ozzy?
yeah, I watched him backstab you directly to all those groups.
Yeah, he just
I sat there
outright
watching.
lied. He just outright lied on stage.
Well, not only that, but I've been watching him because I still, like have like that occasional like I'll come by just to watch what's going on with the group I had before, and just watching their integrity, and I'm just watching like how they're approaching believers or non-believers. I'm just disagreeing with it. So like, I'm just kind of like, where's this nice Jesus that they're talking about?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. So Ozzy goes from profusely agreeing and defending me, and then in a heartbeat, he just flips, and then he lies over what he said. I mean, this is not mental stability at its finest.
Right. So what was the disagreement between you and Mars about? Was it the woman thing?
Having to do, and not that I want to resurrect that issue, having to do with the nature and the content of scientific research vis-a-vis whether or not it indicated agency or free will.
Oh, I don't know. I don't even know what that means. So I won't even resurrect it.
It's nothing really important. It's really petty.
I'm done then. I just didn't know if
That's not like it's not like a theological matter or something.
Oh, okay. Well, how are you guys doing this morning? I just want to say hi.
Good.
Yeah, I'm doing good.
Yeah, that Aussie really. I mean, that's just disgusting. That he. I don't know why would he want to come in knowing that I was going to directly confront him, and that he wasn't going
I don't
to.
know.
He knew that I would directly confront him. He knew that he wouldn't concede. So he's just looking for, a confrontation.
That's weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're going to approach someone to
Outright
apologize.
lie. He sent me a DM. He sent me a DM where he said he was all supportive of me, but then when I use the word backstabbing, he goes, he wrote in a DM that's why he decided to block me. Right? I guess I guess people conveniently forget sometimes when they write DMs. And Aussie conveniently forgot that he wrote that to me in a DM.
Well, I just heard him say he did not do that.
Well, that was an outright lie.
Maybe it's what is it called? Maybe he's like dissociating.
A dissociative disorder.
Yeah. Well, I guess no.
Well, a lot of people we talk to have trouble with reality. So.
Yeah. No, he wrote me a DM. I could actually pull it up and take a screenshot of it, but I'm not going to waste my time. Right. Where he specifically wrote me a DM about that issue, and that he was blocking me solely on the grounds that I said that Hallowed had backstabbed me.
Well, I have all of them against me anyway, so.
I think that's like a good thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, isn't Jesus said I come to divide?
Look, yeah. Well, look, me. I don't want to use the word repeatedly, but successively saying to him, "Hallowed, you didn't properly mod me. Can you please mod me?" That's not bullying anybody. And the thing.
No, I know.
The thing
That's
is,
pent-up frustration, though. I think
he was doing his stream for the first time. He was a nervous wreck. Okay.
Oh yeah, he gets.
And he unjustifiably made the accusation that I was bullying him when he was rattled because he didn't know what the hell he was doing. So he decided to lash out at me, and what he was doing was, if it had just been him and me in there and those other people in there, he wouldn't have reacted that way.
It's crazy.
Because there were people in there who were his compatriots, but they were hostile to me and they jumped on the bandwagon, he decided to join in those knuckleheads.
It's crazy. Like,
Well, can I tell you that I actually will tell you what I think personally it is. So when you come on our live, right, I had Coffee and Hallowed there, and then they were kind of upset with me that I wouldn't control you on stage, quote unquote. And I'm like, I'm letting Darth take over because Darth has an amazing background. But they're like,
yeah, and
he's
anytime
rude. He doesn't like people there.
Yeah, I know you so far. I know you that if you wanted to curtail my conduct or activity, right, at any time or level, that you would have no compunctions about doing that. And being that it's your stream, I would say, oh, okay, it's your stream.
Yeah. No, if I had a problem with you, I'd tell you. But the
course you
issue
would.
is, I think what I was having is a power struggle because they were controlling the lives. Actually, Coffee was originally on my live, and it was just Coffee.
Exactly.
And then somehow
Yeah, exactly.
Hallow came in, and then Hallow came in, and then Hallow would take over the entire live, and then then you came in, and I think they were mad that they couldn't take over the live because then I gave you like full mods, full direction, but then it was almost like they just
Well, if they have
are
a beef with me, why not just say, we appreciate your input, but we would like more input as well. Okay, would you mind if we interjected more frequently and had a little equal time? I would. You know what I think you know very well what my response would be. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, exactly. You have no problem going to other lives. You say, I'll be back, and I always hope you come back sooner than you do. But it's like, so, and then they just didn't like, I'm nicety. They have this opinion that you can just be nice to atheists. And I'm like, I'm sorry, that doesn't work with them. You know what I mean? Like, I can't bring myself to be nice to people.
I am nice to them. I am nice to them on a regular basis. But when they cross certain lines of bad behavior,
that's what I'm saying.
Then I reprimand them like a school teacher.
Yeah.
That's
what I'm saying. Like, I will
Hey,
not
let's
be,
give this this guy's been waiting for a while.
Yeah, let's move on.
Do you want to talk to him, Darth?
Hey, gentlemen. How are you doing today?
Fine. By the way, in the chat, Common Loot, please stop trolling, okay? I do debate people all the time. I go into other streams where I absolutely do not have mods, so stop lying, Loot.
All right, guess what would you like to say?
I think for me, I'll tell you why I left Christianity. I think for me, I kind of realized that there was a lot of fantastical ideas that...
We don't need like an atheist testimony, though.
No, it's cool.
We don't need a lecture either. Just tell us why you want.
When you say fantastical, well, yeah, there's a lot of things in there that are fantastic, and we would agree with you. It doesn't mean they're not true.
Science makes a lot of fantastic claims, but you believe science. Science makes way more fantastic claims than the Bible.
Science is built on theory. It's not claim.
Bro.
Dude, do you realize how you just contradicted yourself?
Can you explain?
Yeah, you said science isn't based on claims. It's based upon theory.
Yeah.
They're the same thing, dumbass.
Theories are claims.
No, it's
you don't know what you're talking about. All observations are inherently theory laden. There are different multi-levels of theories, and they're all claims. They're all models. Sometimes sub-models within greater models.
It's based on.
If I say to you,
can I finish?
If you ask me what's the weather outside, and I say to you, I look out the window. I said the sky is clear blue. Okay, is Is that a theory? Or is that a claim?
Theories are claims based on massive amounts of evidence. They
You're
need
not
to
you're
be
not you're
peer
not you're
reviewed,
not you're not
and they also
understanding.
need
Okay,
to
we're
hold up.
talking about a higher level of theory. Okay, there are different levels of theoretical constructs. Okay.
That's conjecture.
Okay, dude, I'm not going to argue with you. You're completely uneducated in the matter.
No,
There,
I'm
there
actually very
are. Listen
educated.
carefully.
I go to one
Listen
of the best
carefully.
unis in the
The
world.
word theory.
You
Look,
should ask for your money back.
you're gone. Yeah. Yeah. I guarantee if I asked you his age, you would
See,
say 18.
ask your university for a refund because they're not doing too
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. So there are different levels of theory. So when we use the word theory with a capital T in any scientific discussion, we're not talking about something that is merely a glorified hypothesis. Okay.
Dude, imagine spending all that money on education and then you end up like that guy.
Yeah. A theory with a capital T means it's a very seriously thought about explanation of why there's certain phenomenon, right? And it's not just simply, a knee-jerk explanation for something, okay? And a theory with a capital T in science usually is multi-layered, okay? And there's a certain amount of complexity and richness to it. It doesn't make the theory true, right? But there's all different levels of theories.
They just want to sit here and go, you're just making a claim, as if that's like profound for them to say that.
So all theories,
Yes. It's like
all theories, regardless of their complexity level, are claims.
same with arguments, right? Like, all arguments are claims. All arguments have assertions.
Wait, yeah. Can I ask? Can I ask when someone says that's a claim? Can I go? Is that a claim?
Yeah, exactly. Of course it is. Yeah.
Yes. Well,
So does
they're
that
also
make it a claim that's
when
not
they
true?
say that's a claim, that's an act. They're predicating, and that would entail God to be the final reference point for predication. So they would have to say to predicate. It's like, how are you predicating without God? Because that's a claim.
Mm-hmm.
Predication would require that'd be a vertical claim, an act of predicate that you can predicate.
Yeah,
When
I
we say
think
when I
these
say
colloquial
predicate
phrases.
By the way, when I say predicate, I should say that's kind of a fancy way to say A is B or the cat is black. That's just predicate. A is B.
Okay. I was going to ask you what predicating means. I was thinking it was having some sort of backup to your claim.
No, predication is the sky is blue.
Yeah, just A is B. If just you say something is something else.
It comes from the predicate comes from the word predicate.
And every time we talk, that's what we're essentially doing. We're saying A is B all the time. And so you have to like defend. That's a metaphysical claim. So these people, they throw metaphysical punches, and then we ask them to back up the metaphysics, and they go, I'm not in a metaphysical fight. I'm not in the fight. You're the one fighting.
Yeah, exactly. They go in like, we're not the one making the claim. You are.
I'm
not
fighting. You're fighting.
Is that a claim?
Yeah,
is that a claim
fighting.
that you just predicated that you're not in the fight? That you're not, are you predicating you're not in the fight?
By the way, Aussie is very indicative of that verse in Proverbs where it talks about how the king is talking to you, and then the king is, being really nice to you, and then the proverb says, "For as he thinks in his heart, that's how he is." Right? In other words, their frontal presentation to you isn't always what their true attitude toward you is, and that's what Aussie was doing.
Dude, I gotta say I've never liked that guy from the start. Just when I told him my whole reason for being Calvinist, and then he says, "I think you're eisegesising wrong." And then when I was trying to go to like someone else that said it,
eisegesising wrong.
You're a Calvinist.
Well, I'm saying exegesising or eisege or whatever. I can't remember which one he told me, but I was like, okay, let's go to someone else that has this. See if they're eisegesising wrong. I can bring up John MacArthur as an option. And so he wouldn't let me talk. He just wanted to force the conversation down my throat that he had one, and I'm like, okay, goodbye. So that's where I kicked him off my stage originally. So it's crazy.
Yeah, there's
But
a way.
I'm not
Yeah, there's a way to
fighting Calvinism.
there's a way to disagree. Okay, you and I
Yeah.
disagree on that, but we're not at each other's throats.
No.
This is how
Listen,
you.
I'm not
This is
claiming-
how you. This is how you disagree. Tab, if you believe in Calvinism, you're going to hell.
I knew you were going to say that.
I'm glad you predicated. Is that a claim?
No, it's a theory.
It's a theory with a capital T.
It's so laughable when we deal with these uneducated people. They just don't even have a basic understanding of the philosophy of science. Not that you have to be formally educated or be an expert. It's just they have, as like PMAR says, they have this naive empiricism.
Well, can I ask? All these fallacies that get thrown around. So his fallacy was that he was appealing to the fact that he went to an authoritative or best university. What's that a fallacy of? Like, just because he got wrong information from a university.
I think it's called ad educatumum.
Educated fallacy.
Ad educatumum.
Ad educatum.
Yeah.
That's the educated fallacy.
I already know what PMAR's position is. Okay. Right. I already know what Ryan's position is. Right. Ryan made that very clear in his first interview. He said he was mostly uneducated and ignorant of the nature of biblical presuppositionalism. He said that himself.
I got like 45 minutes before you go to work, so I'm going to jump on my live for a little bit, but I'm going to come back listen to you guys.
Okie dokie.
All right. Yeah,
Love you guys.
I debated Mullins on Presup, and his defeater was like phenomenal conservatism.
Well, look, Ryan's a really smart guy, but this is not an area of his speciality. Right?
He's way smarter than me. It's just like I just happen to study something that he hasn't.
Well, he hasn't gone into depth studying. This is not an area of his interest. There are other issues that I disagree with Ryan on. I just happen to like certain portions of his writings that he's really good on. That doesn't mean that this is how childish these people are. That if they find out that there are certain things that I disagree with him on, or vice versa, that's somehow a crisis.
Well, it shows their mentality. Like the people who say that you kick people if they disagree. How many times do you hear that, right? So, like,
well, that's a lie.
That's what they think. Did you say not a lot?
No, I said when they say I kick people merely because I disagree, that's a lie.
Yeah, but you hear that. They say that a lot. And so they have that view. So they think, like, you'll get mad at Mullins for disagreeing and kick him, right? That's what they're trying to do.
That's just entirely stupid. Okay, I've known from the get-go.
I think that's their mentality. That's what I'm saying. I agree.
I've known from almost the beginning that Mullins is not a young Earth creationist. Okay, yeah, fine. I disagree with that. I think he's dead wrong.
His wife is a biologist, right?
Yeah, yeah, and they wrote a paper together. So that's not surprising. There's a couple of things that I disagree with him. That doesn't mean that I'm going to let that temper my enthusiasm for the areas that he writes upon that I agree with. Does it shock me that he didn't jump on the bandwagon of biblical presuppositionalism? No, because for people who haven't studied it, it's all too common they reject what they either don't understand or what has been misrepresented to them. Like, for example, if you look at the second interview Ryan did with Danny Philbro, Danny, like Tom, Malevolent Rabbit, was trying to manipulate both of them. So in the second interview, Mullins made it very clear that he just simply didn't understand the nature of epistemology within the biblical presuppositionalist position. This is the same thing that from the beginning where Van Til was accused, misunderstood and accused of like saying that unbelievers can't know things. And Van Til has responded a number of times saying, that's absurd that he holds that notion. He holds very clearly that unbelievers do and can know things because of God's common grace.
Well, yeah, and of course, when I tried to get Jack to talk to Ryan about their disagreement, he avoided that, remember?
Oh, I remember how sheepish he was the first or second time he talked with Ryan Mullins. You can see it on the internet. Where's Mr. Ballsy Jack? Okay, because Jack knew that he was going to get smoked by any discussion about God and time. Why wasn't he going gangbusters after Ryan Mullins? Because he knew he was going to get smoked. Welcome to Art, I would like to say. Ark, are you there?
Hello.
Yeah.
I'm actually eating cereal right now, so I'm really able to talk about how I can.
I didn't understand you.
So I was actually eating cereal right now.
All right, your microphone is garbled.
Jack brought me up on stage and confronted with me with apparently James is tired and John Lee are spreading rumors about me now, and like I don't even talk to those people.
Well, both of those individuals, they're just vile pieces of garbage. John Lee, James is tired.
Yeah,
both disreputable individuals.
It's funny how they're so they're Mr. Skeptic, but then he believes like internet wants to talk about internet rumors and shit. He doesn't want to debate precept.
Well, both of them are quite guilty of spreading disinformation. I even had John Lee wrote me a multi-paragraph apology several years ago for slandering and defaming me. Oops.
You want to hear? Check out this response by Greg Botson. I thought this was pretty funny. It has some zingers. He goes, this is Greg Botson, okay? He says, oh, cool. You ground logic in reality? That's like saying grammar is grounded in alphabet soup. Matter doesn't think, prescribe, or care if you're conscious, if your conclusions contradict. Sorry. Matter doesn't care if your conclusions contradict. Logic isn't just there like cosmic wallpaper. You're hijacking Christian capital while pretending rocks wrote reason. Cute trick, but transparent.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. I love that your like grammar is grounded in alphabet soup. That's funny.
That is good. Okay, welcome, Critical. Are you an atheist, and how old are you? Are you an atheist, and how old are you? I didn't hear your age. I didn't hear your age.
30 and yes.
Okay, can you tell me why there's no God?
Because there's no evidence for him.
Okay, does it logically and necessarily follow from your claim that God doesn't exist?
Because there's no evidence.
That's not an answer to my question. No, that's not an answer to my question.
So I said yes.
So how does it logically?
Is there any evidence for your God?
Can you not interrupt me while I'm speaking, please? So can you show?
Question. What's wrong?
The second time you've interrupted me. Please do not interrupt me.
Don't get offended.
Okay.
It's okay.
The third
We're just here to have a
time.
conversation.
Now you're blocked.
Oh, don't run from me. Come
I'm
on.
not running from you. I'm
Oh.
disciplining you for
Yeah, you're gonna
behaving badly.
discipline me.
Okay.
Oh. You're
Okay.
so
Yep.
offended. Don't get offended
No,
too easy.
I'm not offended. I just don't put up with people that are scumbags. Come up here and you have an avatar that you are for critical thinking, critical thinking skills, and then you do the exact opposite. Another example of a skeptic being totally disingenuous and deceitful.
I always thought critical thinking was when you examine the evidence from all sides and then come to a conclusion after examining all the evidence you can. So what evidence would you have examined for atheism to conclude that atheism was the case? That very curious. Very curious.
Yeah.
How could you even be a critical thinking
Yeah.
atheist? How is that even
Now
possible?
notice again when I ask him, how does it logically and necessarily follow from your claim that God does not exist? He simply just repeats the same claim over again without showing the logical entailment.
Seems to me like you could only be an indoctrinated atheist because indoctrination would be the opposite of critical thinking. That's when you don't examine the evidence and you just believe things, or you only examine one side. So I can't imagine, like, how could you examine all the evidence and come to the conclusion that atheist evidence is the best? What is that atheist evidence?
Oh, God doesn't exist because there's no evidence. Okay, how does that follow? It follows because God doesn't exist because there's no evidence. Yeah, okay, how does that follow? It just does.
It's like appeals to incredulity and appeals to ignorance. That's all they.
First of all, I'm even being gracious. I'm temporarily granting your claim there's no evidence. I'm not agreeing with it. I'm just saying, how does it follow?
They love
And
they'll do the psychological report too. Oh, because religion was used to control people. It was used for to keep society cohesion.
yeah, it was to control people,
Even if that's true, which I would grant that religion was used as like a primitive form of propaganda. I would grant that.
All worldviews are used to bring guidelines how people ought to conduct themselves. Even materialism. Could I say that materialism was concocted in order to control people? Right. I mean, look, it's so stupid, but they've got nothing else. That's why when I asked Alex Malpass,
I would say you could. I would say you could actually.
yeah. So when I asked Alex Malpass, how is it there is no God? The super genius, Mr. Philoso Bro, Alex Malpass says, "Oh, I just think gods are made up."
Oh man, you know what I should do? I should watch that interview again and clip where he tells people how to handle precept by just not answering their questions.
I think you should do another video based upon that one and do it a little bit more slowly because it goes by very fast. That was a devastating video because, Danny Smugly is saying this is how you handle precepts. And when we see him in a real world occasion, dealing with a precept, Jay Myers, he just fails miserably.
Because Malpass says the same thing, so I guess they feel justified because Malpass said it. Therefore, I can do it. I can make that move. Malpass
Yeah.
grossly I've read his paper on precept. He doesn't understand what he's talking about.
Yeah. When he talks about you'd have to do an
Inductive survey on every worldview. That's his critique, and that's not precept. Precept is a challenge or a gauntlet. Like, can your model of reality, can your view of the world make sense of like observable data and logic and
yeah. He tries to present himself as sophisticated in that article that he wrote. I dealt with him on over, I think, at least 8 times, and he was awful each time. That's not to discount that he has a PhD in philosophy. but when it comes to discussing these issues, he was really bad.
Dude, this philosopher bro tried to appeal to the principle of differentiation as his like ultimate. Have you ever heard anyone do that?
Say that again.
Some philosopher bro, he said his ultimate was the principle of differentiation.
What the hell does that even mean?
Some principle that can differentiate between being and non-being or different.
Well,
It's basically like the one in the
that's
middle.
not explaining to us what ontologically imposes diversity.
God would be like the ultimate eternal differentiator that differentiates.
Well, suppose we had a cake.
So like the one in the many is like a question of what differentiates things, right? What's the differentiator?
What imposes unity and diversity? Differentiation has to do with diversity.
Exactly. And so he just appealed to this principle of differentiation that does that, right? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So
if
you have a cake and you cut it in half, we now have they're differentiated, they're demarcated, they're discrete from each other. Okay. So what does that? Well, first of all, the unity was bifurcated. It was cut in half. Then what differentiates them is that they have different states of identity, which included with are different time-space coordinates, right?
Yeah, so that's what we're sort of asking in tag, or that's one of the questions we like. What differentiates things, right? And he said he just was appealing to this like principle of differentiation.
That's not answering the question.
But I'm like, I said, yeah, you're just putting a label on a necessity. I was
That's a Graham Oppie answer. When I asked him, what is it that imposes and sustains the unity and diversity, he says, well, I count books on my shelf. That's the same thing as what that guy's saying when he says the differentiate principle. Okay. What I didn't ask him, does he believe in unity and diversity? I said, what institutes and secures it?
See, this is where I love Greg Botson because it helps me like cut through all that Philbro crap. Where the bot was saying, "Cool story. So you admit there's a principle of differentiation that's necessary for intelligibility, but you can't name it, ground it, or explain why it necessarily holds. You just allow it. That's not a worldview. That's hand waving.
They're operating that there's a fundamental parameter of existence of unity and diversity.
Well, listen,
they cannot account for what ontologically imposes that.
And then the bot says, meanwhile, Christianity names that principle, the triune unity and diversity in perfect harmony, eternally, not metaphysical baggage, just metaphysical backbone. Because he accused me of metaphysical baggage. So the bot goes, it's not metaphysical baggage, it's metaphysical backbone. It goes, you want explanatory power without explanation, order without an orderer, differentiation without a differentiator. You're not doing philosophy. You're just hoping no one notices you borrowed all your tools from us, Christians. Isn't that bot awesome?
It is. It's good. It is very good.
And guess what? That shut the mouth of the non-believer. He's like, all right. He just gave up after that.
Yeah, I would encourage everybody to also look at my interaction with Graham Oppie. And when I started to challenge him, that's what he wanted to get rid of me.
I got the clip. Give me a second. I like to play these clips so people know we're not just telling tales. You know, they can hear it. It's tangible. They love their tangibilities. Here's it.
Yeah, one of the world's smartest atheists cannot actually account for unity and diversity.
Here we go. I'm playing the clip.
To move on in the AMA, Darth.
Is unity real? Is any unity real? And what?
Sure. So Unity
Okay.
just means you can count things. So there's dozens of books on the shelf behind me. Of course, Unity's real. Each one of them is a single book.
That's basically what he said.
That's begging the question. And what imposes it?
There's books on the shelf.
Yeah, what actualizes, what makes it real?
Darth
And then
is saying, yeah,
his answer was, what makes it real is it's just real.
Darth is saying, look, Graham, there's books on the shelf. What makes that real?
Yeah.
And he goes, there's books on the shelf.
Yeah, I can count them. I didn't ask you if they are real. I said, what makes it real?
Was he making a joke about accounting there?
No, he was dead serious. Look, there's no answer to that question from his not God perspective. So he just gave an answer that a teenager would give. This is one of the world's smartest atheists. He cannot account for what fundamentally imposes unity and diversity.
I guess so. That was just like a dodge, really, right? Like he punted.
Well, it's what any run-of-the-mill atheist would say. They rather than answer the question, they just beg the question, saying, "Well, it's just real." I'm not questioning that it's real. I said, "What secures that it's real? What makes it real?"
Yeah,
and he has no answer because he's an atheist.
Exactly. Yeah.
So he has to go, well, I can count another shrimp on the Barbie, mate.
They take existence for granted.
Yeah.
Like it's just
He wasn't addressing the question. And the reason why he responded that way is because he had no answer. Welcome, Lactose. What would you like to say?
Yeah, I'm an atheist. What do you mean by Christianity is objectively proven?
The propositional content represented in the Bible of the God's attribute set is such that his attribute set is exclusive and indispensable for all truth, reason, and intelligibility. Therefore, the positive representation of God's character set in the Christian worldview cannot be rationally refuted. So therefore, it's objectively proven. It's a transcendental argument.
So because the Bible says so, it's objectively proven.
Is that how I expressed it?
It kind of sounded like it.
No, that's not what I said. I didn't say merely because words make a claim. The self-testimony of God himself about his character set, we could only know that he possesses that were he to express and communicate that. Okay? Those properties can ground truth, reason, intelligibly. So let me ask you this question. If there is something that is a single...
Oh, Darth, you muted yourself.
Says all great making properties. Can such an entity provide for the ground?
You cut out there.
Okay, so can a single causal principle that discloses itself, if indeed it does disclose itself, can that property set of having all perfection, all great making properties, can that single causal first principle in terms of its property set provide for the basis of truth, reason, intelligibility?
No.
So something that's perfect, that is the origin point for everything, cannot provide for intelligibility?
I would think that you'd have to prove that perfect thing exists in the first place before
you're confusing ontology with epistemology. Okay,
Know the power of the dark side.
Okay, so what you've just done is you've baited and switched. I'm giving you, I said, can a specific ontological realm, okay, can something that is ontologically perfect and is the ground of all being provide for intelligibility, okay? I'm talking about its attributes were to be true. We're not talking about persuasion at this point, okay? Let me ask you this question. If I said to you, I have a credit card in my pocket that has $1 million limit, right? If I gave it to you and authorized you to use it, could you go buy a new car with it?
Yes.
Okay. Now, there's a difference between what its actuality can effectuate versus you being persuaded that the card is genuine. Okay? You
All right.
understand the difference?
All right. I get what you're saying. So
Okay. So
yeah,
now, let me go back and explain it to you that the God of the Bible clearly communicates propositionally, secured in the Bible, what his attribute set is. And that attribute set, to put it briefly, is one of all perfection, all great making properties. Now, there can only be one true worldview whose foundation provides for the grounds of reason, truth, and intelligibility. Okay? Only one worldview can do that. Now, from that positive presentation, where God presents that his attribute set can do that, then it follows from that it would have to be true because no other worldview could do it. So we have both a positive defense of the propositions followed by a reductio ad absurdum, that any attempt to deny that will result in contradiction or absurdity. So it's a transcendental proof, okay, that X is a necessary precondition for Y. We both agree that Y exists, therefore X is true. If you attempt to deny the transcendental proof, your position results in a contradiction or absurdity.
all right.
Okay?
So in the Bible, when it says God is perfect and on that and all that, how do you know that the Bible is like speaking truth? How do you know that it's not just a guy making it up?
Okay, so when we look at the Bible, it represents a comprehensive composite worldview. When we look at that, it distills down into the attribute set of the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible has revealed indirectly and implicitly through creation, but specifically and propositionally within the Bible, what his property set is, right? And I just explained to you, you've agreed that property set can provide for truth, reason, and intelligibility. Well,
If it's true, yes.
Yeah, okay, that's right. But now there can't be any other worldview that does that because only one worldview can have that property set.
So, like,
You can't have two worldviews that can both provide for intelligibility because
like,
only one worldview can do that, which is the only true worldview.
so like because the type of thing God is, because he like makes facts true, to deny him, you'd have to be making a counterclaim that like something else makes facts true.
Yeah, you can't just be indifferent or just say, I don't buy it. Because to not accept the positive presentation will either be an explicit or an implicit counterclaim. But no such counterclaim can be made.
Right, like you can't remove the source of truth and then still talk about truth. Like we couldn't talk about sunlight and then deny the sun, the source of sunlight, right? So when we're talking about truth claims, we need a source. That's God. So if you deny God, fine. What's the source of truth now?
Why does truth need to be grounded in a God?
Because truth claims it needs to
truth has to be grounded. Truth has to be grounded in virtue of what the ultimate nature of reality is.
Why?
Why? Because there needs to be a precondition without which it cannot exist.
For the same reason, like you couldn't have sunlight without a sun. There needs to be a source to the sunlight. Same thing with truth. Truth needs a source.
So if you
truth is like an abstract idea, and sunlight is a physical thing.
No, truth is an abstract representation of a plurality of concrete particulars that something is the case, like the Eiffel Tower stands in Paris. Okay? Now, the point is this. Do you agree that only one worldview can be true?
No.
Okay, so this is where you're greatly confused, right? A worldview is all encompassing. There's nothing external to a worldview. You understand that before I continue?
How would you define worldview?
A worldview is your entire interconnected and interrelated beliefs about the entirety of the world. So a worldview, there's nothing external to your worldview. There's nothing outside of that.
It's your
Okay.
foundational assumptions about things
Yeah.
like existence, truth, and being.
Yeah. It's the unification of all things. Okay.
So yeah, different people can have different
In
worldviews, and that doesn't make.
a worldview, just so we're clear, and this is not controversial, if I said to you, there's something that lies outside of reality, what would your response be to that?
No, that doesn't make sense.
Right, and neither does it make sense that there's something that is extraneous or outside of a worldview.
Isn't a worldview just like how an individual interprets the world around them? Like Paris is outside of my worldview right now.
That's a part of it, but a worldview is all encompassing. Okay, so if I said to you reality could be just used as a synonym for worldview. Okay.
Do they have the same definition?
There are differences in what it means. So reality.
Then they're not synonyms.
No, I said they can be used as synonyms. So, for example, reality can be refer to the set of all things, right? You agree with that?
Sure,
Good.
but
Now,
I would say that like a worldview is just like how you interpret the world around you.
Your worldview is your entire set of interconnected and interrelated beliefs. So they're both sets about all that is.
Yeah, beliefs and reality are very different, though.
We're not talking about beliefs. We're talking about your worldview. Beliefs would be within your worldview. Okay. Now, if you want to play the game that your worldview is just one grand belief, then so be it. So would the notion of what reality constitutes would also be a belief. So the bottom line here is this: only one worldview, or how about I put it to you this way? Only one state of reality can be true.
Yeah, I'll agree to that.
Okay, well then it also follows for a worldview. Okay? Now, there are
Oh, Darth, you muted yourself again.
views. Okay?
Darth, you cut out.
I know. There are multiple conflicting worldviews, but only one of them can be true. Okay? You can't have two opposing worldviews or mutually exclusive worldviews that are true.
Sure. So why does this mean that the Bible is true?
Okay. So what we're saying to you is we determine that something is true by virtue of its positive representation and the impossibility of its denial. Okay. Is it true that oxygen and water are exclusive and indispensable for keeping you alive?
Correct.
Right. What makes that true?
Because without it, I would not be alive.
Right. So you're talking about a positive representation followed by a reductio ad absurdum. Okay? That's exactly what we're saying for the attribute set of the Christian God. We have a positive representation, okay, and that since only one worldview can be true, and God has that property set, then no other worldview can have it. So we have a positive case for that. When you attempt to not accept that, which is a counterclaim, your position is instantly reduced to absurdity. So a transcendental argument, if it is correctly formulated, will prove what's being proposed, followed by a reductio ad absurdum.
Sure. I wouldn't say that atheism is like the rejection of religion. I would say it's more just the state of not being convinced that a God exists.
That is a false characterization of the nature of atheism. The reason why you're defining it that way and other atheists do it is you're attempting to redefine atheism in such a way as to insulate yourself from having to defend what it really is.
Darth, what is a theist?
A theist is somebody who affirms the proposition that God is true.
Yeah, and an atheist is someone who just doesn't do that.
Okay, you're how old are you?
I'm 28.
Okay, have you read any scholarly works on the definition of atheism?
I have not, no.
Okay, I have. Okay, so atheism, what you're doing is, even after I told you what you're doing, you did exactly the very thing that I said you're doing. You are attempting to redefine atheism into a way that is ambiguous, right, and nebulous, so to insulate yourself from having to defend what your real position is. Atheism is not merely a mental state absent a positive belief in God. Atheism in the English language, cross-sectionally of reference works and including encyclopedias and dictionaries of philosophy, the definition of atheism is clear across the board, that there is no God or gods. It does not merely indicate an absence of positive belief. Atheists are redefining atheism from a proposition about the external world, where they're trying to say that atheism is not a proposition external to themselves, but that atheism is a proposition about a mere absence of a positive belief in their minds. That's not what atheism is.
Sure. So on Merriam-Webster, it defines atheist as, quote, a person who does not believe in the existence of a God.
That's right. What you're doing is you're capitalizing on the potential ambiguity of saying not believe. Okay, if you look at a cross-sectional look at all dictionaries and encyclopedias and philosophical works, to say that atheism is a lack of belief is problematic because it's ambiguous. To say that atheism is merely a lack of belief without constituting the denial of God, then is there a single word in the English language that is used to identify those who deny God? Does such a word exist?
We could probably make one up, but like,
No,
yeah, the
no,
whole like
that's
descriptive,
not an answer
prescriptive
to my
thing about
question.
words.
That's not an answer to my question. Does such a word exist pervasively in the English language to designate those who deny God's existence?
When you say deny God's existence, do you
Or
mean
if you
like an
dodge
actively?
one more time, I'm going to remove you from the stage.
All right, that's fine. You're not really saying much anyway.
No, I am actually no. That's a lie. So now what you're going from dodging my reasonable question to lying that I'm not saying anything. Okay, you might disagree with me, but to say that I'm not saying of anything of substance at all is an outright lie. Do you want to apologize for lying about me?
No.
Goodbye, scumbag.
Goodbye.
You see, this is what they do. They go from dodging repeatedly and then to lying.
You know what it's almost like?
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
You think it was something like that?
Yeah. So you see, this is the little childish game that they play.
My audio okay?
Yeah, your audio is fine. Are you an atheist?
It looks like you're lagging though.
I'm sorry if my audio is cutting out.
It's fine.
My audible?
Yes.
I'm having poor reception. I'm sorry.
Okay, let's just drop him. He's lagging.
Yeah, I'll try.
He was lagging. He had one bar.
Well, about that. See, this is the problem. When they deploy cheating, okay, they're operating at an unfair advantage. So to sit there and just say atheism is now just a psychological condition without referring to external propositional content, it's just being deceptive. That there are some dictionaries that include that atheism is a lack of belief. Okay, I recognize that, but that's a completely ambiguous definition. Okay?
Okay, but can I ask you a question with no bias? I'm not going to disprove what you say, but I'm just saying, were you born at the age of 0 with the belief of like religion, or?
Oh God, how old are you?
I am 22.
Okay, this is embarrassing for a 22-year-old young man to be asking a question that I would literally, and I'm not trying to be mean here, that a 14-year-old would ask. Okay. So atheism has to do with somebody has the cognitive wherewithal to grasp the concept of God, right? A toddler does not have the neurological or cognitive faculties to conceptualize the concept of God.
So are we not all born atheists then?
No. An atheist is somebody. An atheist is somebody who has the cognitive and neurological wherewithal to appropriate the concept of God and then to deny that that is true.
Well, atheism at the base level is a lack of belief.
Okay, where did you get that from?
I mean, you can go look in the dictionary. It's
Wait, do you understand? Let me ask you this question. You're about to be really embarrassed right now.
Okay, sure.
Now, does every atheist who outright denies God's existence, do they lack a belief in God?
Yeah, there's a different.
So stop right there. So stop right
atheism and
there.
agnosticism.
Stop. Listen to me. Don't bicker with me like you're 16. Okay, I'm gonna hold you to acting like a 22-year-old young man.
Okay.
Now, does the term lack of belief, can it refer to those who deny God's existence, and can it refer to those who claim not to deny God's existence but withhold positive belief?
I mean, if someone withholds positive belief from God,
You're not
do they still
focusing
believe in
on
him?
my question. I said, can it refer to both of those?
Is that not agnosticism versus atheism?
Sir, focus. You're 22 years old, okay? This is your last chance.
I'm answering your question, man.
$22 going on 14.
Hello.
The level of incompetence that we meet with the skeptics is just staggering.
That's a cool ad hom.
That's not an ad hom. Don't confuse an ad hom with a criticism. Okay?
Sounds more like an insult to me than a criticism.
Can you tell me the difference between an ad hom and an insult and a criticism?
Yeah, an ad hom would be like insulting instead of doing a debate. A criticism would be like.
No, wrong. You don't know
Thanks
what
for
you're
interrupting
talking.
me. That's really sexy.
Yeah, well, that's because you're speaking absolute ignorance. An ad hom is that we say somebody's line of reasoning is wrong because of a character defect. Let's say the person's a slob, okay? Or let's say somebody says something and they're intoxicated, right? An ad hom would say that their line of reasoning followed by a conclusion wherein the conclusion is wrong because of some type of character defect. That's what an ad hom is, okay? An insult or a criticism does not constitute being an ad hom in debate and philosophy.
Sure. So I just looked up ad hom. Often currently this term refers to a rhetorical strategy where the speaker attacks the character, motive, or some other attribute of the person rather than making an argument of themselves.
Right. What they're saying, they're attempting to invalidate the position of the person by virtue of invoking their bad character. Merely criticizing somebody does not necessarily constitute an ad hom. If I said somebody was wrong, listen to me. If I said somebody is wrong in their propositional stance because of their character, that would be an ad hom. If I simply pointed out that the atheists that we deal with, okay, and I give an insult to their bad behavior or their lack of character or their lack of critical thinking skills, that's not an ad hom. Okay? So
sure. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, you can, but today you've been educated how you just misused an ad hom. Okay? So merely criticizing somebody, or suppose I said X characterizes group Y, okay? Now, whether you agree that X characterizes group Y or not is besides the point. Suppose I said all atheists are slobs, right? That's not an ad hom. It might, you might find that it is false, but it's not an ad hom. An ad hom in debate and philosophy is that atheists are wrong in their conclusion that God they're wrong in their conclusion that God doesn't exist because they're slobs. That would be an ad hominem. So do you understand how you've misused your charge of ad hom?
Yes, thank you for correcting me. Can I ask my question now?
Yes.
Awesome. Why is there suffering in the world if God loves us?
Because it's a part of God's plan of redemption.
So, do you think that it's good for people to suffer?
I think it's good for God to execute his plan of creation and redemption. I don't have
So
to
that doesn't answer my
I don't have
question.
to I don't have to everything that God does is good according to his overall plan. I don't have to like or agree with God permits in order to fulfill his plan.
So, Darth, if God told you to steal a candy bar from a grocery store, would you do it?
Okay, the Bible tells us not to answer foolish questions.
Okay, if God told
And
you,
and by the way, this is just a stupid gotcha question, and I can just simply respond to it. I'm a cessationist. I don't believe God is continuing in Revelation. Okay, so the point of it, if God told you that you need to repent in order to escape eternal damnation and receive eternal life, would you?
no.
Okay, so you just proved my point. You're utterly irrational.
How so?
Okay, if I told you, if you go through that doorway, it's you're going to plummet 20 stories to your death. If you go through that doorway, there's a staircase, right? And you decided to walk through the doorway where you plummet to your death. Would that be rational?
I think that would be disanalogous.
No, it's not disanalogous at all. It's talking about both outcomes that you are choosing end in complete destruction. So it's not disanalogous, is it? So this is the second time that you've made a mistake. It's not disanalogous. We're talking about making a choice with the outcome being total destruction, right?
Sure. So yeah, if that's like
okay. So were you incorrect when you said it was disanalogous?
No. Could I explain why? Would you let me?
No, you cannot explain why. Did both scenarios involve a choice?
Yes. Now, can I explain to you why they're
Did both
disanalogous?
scenarios involve either life or destruction?
No, because it's not really
hold on
life.
a second. If you go down the staircase, do you live?
Yeah.
Okay, if you walk through the other doorway and you fall down the elevator shaft, okay, do you face destruction?
Yeah.
Okay, so I just proved to you for a third time that it wasn't disanalogous. Are you going to
but
admit
with
that?
God,
Okay, have
it's
a nice
not
day.
life.
You want to lie? Goodbye. We're done. Okay, so great sound effects. Thank you. Yeah, when people are completely dishonest and they get smoked, I gave it when he said it was disanalogous. No, it's not. What we're talking about is both scenarios involve a choice, A or not A. A ends in life, B ends in destruction. Okay, so it's not disanalogous.
They just bicker.
They bicker, they lie, they dodge, they evade. They're totally disingenuous.
Then they bicker about bickering.
Yeah, they bicker with you that they're not bickering.
Did we talk? Oh, this guy. Get a block on you. Get a block on you. Nice account. That's nice.
Let's see. Okay, well, lactose was already up here.
Yeah, there's another guy, but I blocked him because he was doxing.
Do you see the pattern of behavior where when they're not just lying, they're just dodging and deflecting? Look, even their finest, Graham Oppie, he completely dodged. I asked him what actualizes the unity and diversity, and rather than answer it, he just says, "Well, there's just unity and diversity. It just is." Didn't ask him whether it is. I said, "What actualizes it?"
Yeah, I have a question about number one. How is Christianity objectively proven? Thank you.
through a transcendental argument. Okay, do you know what a transcendental argument is?
I do, yeah. So you mean it's a proof, not actual evidence? Okay, all right.
Yeah. Why? Yeah, dude. Why are you being so smarmy?
I mean, that's kind of an ad hominem right there. I'm asking you a question, you answered it. There's no need to be rude or question my motives after that, right?
I'm not being rude. In fact, I'm accurately characterizing your smarminess. Okay, is
you're being
evidence?
rude.
Okay, if you overtalk me while I'm speaking again, I will drop you. Okay.
Oh, well, eat my ass then,
Goodbye.
buddy.
Goodbye. Goodbye. You see the pattern of behavior with these people? I perfectly understand there are
Get some help.
I understand that there are some badly behaving theists, but it seems to be that that the majority of the atheists that we deal with are badly behaving.
Yeah.
Earthling. Graham Oppie could never have answered the question. He was dodging because he couldn't answer the question. He doesn't know what the fundamental ultimate nature of reality is that actualizes the unity and diversity of the world. He just takes it for granted that unity and diversity exist at various scales. Okay?
His model just bottoms out, and he just arbitrarily asserts that certain things are necessary with no reason to say they're like, why are they necessary?
Well, he was dodging the question while pretending to respond to it. Because if he did give an answer, he would be lying, because then he would be asserting that he knows from his atheist perspective what it is that is singularly ultimate. Okay? The ground of being. Anyway, I gotta take I'll be back in a little while, so watch for me in the queue.
Okay.
And don't ever disagree with me again about science and free will, or I'll
highlight that.
I'll kick you in the shins.
I'm gonna make a video called P-Mars destroys, obliterates Darth Dawkins.
P-Mars annihilates Darth Dawkins on free will.
Doesn't stand a chance.
Would you do me a favor? And I'm being serious. Please do a video like that. That'll be really funny.
Okay. I actually was gonna upload it and title the video.
That's fine. I would laugh at something like that. You know,
I'll do it. I'm gonna
we
do
disagree.
it.
Look, we disagree on the issue. We butt heads. So what? Okay. So what?
I'll do a parody of the atheists.
Oh yeah, that would be just you put annihilates, eviscerates.
Darth Dawkins doesn't stand a chance.
Darth Dawkins destroyed a
100% fricked.
You should do that video. You really have to make it a really good clickbait title.
Actually, you know what I'll do? I'll go to Monkey Boy's YouTube and I'll peruse his titles to get the ultimate clickbait title, you know. Because they're the masters of it. So
oh my god,
go to the master.
The masters of clickbait. How about the Tom Rabbit video with Ryan Mullins? Ryan Mullins trashes presuppositionalism when
garbage.
He was ignorant of it.
The title says Ryan Mullins says precept is garbage, and halfway through the video, Ryan Mullins goes, "I don't want to say precept is garbage," word for word.
I don't recall that, but that's
yeah.
Okay, now it jogs my memory.
Yeah.
Word
for word.
Well, it just goes to show you what a liar Tom Rabbit is. All right, I'll be back.
Here, let me check YouTube right now. I'll go to Monkey Boy's channel. What do we have? Mason illustrates precept theology can't handle its own framework. Dunked. Monkey Boy, J Mike, Brian, dismantle Isaac's evasions over God's moral failures. Those are as bad as, like, where's the Darth Dawkins ones? Those are the ones where they really clickbait it. These keep trying, but the evidence never shows up. Oh, here. Precept Pillows is back and collapses under Tupac's externalist heat. Externalist heat. Oh my goodness. That totally, Josh did not collapse. That's total clickbait.
Oh, I went live again. Sorry about that, but I guess I have a minute. Yeah, so Darth is pretty bad at this. All he does is insult people as soon as he gets.
By what standard? By what standard?
So number one,
stop. Bad by what standard?
What standard?
Yeah, do you, like when you say something's good or bad, there's the normative framework.
Oh, I say he's bad at it because he's not convincing anybody.
But your name is morality is subjective. Is that your position?
Yes. Yeah. But do you want to talk about that, or do you want to talk about your?
So when you say Darth Dawkins is bad, you're just saying like.
I'm saying he's poor at what he's trying to do.
No, but it's not real, right? So it's a fantasy. So like in your fantasy world, you pretend.
No, he's very ineffective, which is why I'm saying he's bad.
But bad is
quit trying to recharacterize me, bro.
But your name is morality is subjective. So
yeah,
bad,
but you can't recharacterize me. You can ask me questions, but you can't try and redefine what I'm saying.
Does bad exist?
Yes.
What?
Yes. Bad exists because I subjectively believe it does.
Your name is, you're a moral anti-realist. Now you're a moral realist?
Well, you're reframing things, but yeah.
I'm not reframing anything. Your name is... Okay, never come up here again.
No, just talk.
God, what is wrong with these people? He actually listens? Why would you give lectures? Monkey Boy admitted that he doesn't read. Why doesn't he like clickbaiting the ones where he's like... That's weird. He's not clickbaiting the ones with the... He's not clickbaiting the ones with the other precepts. But here's the one with here's one. Darth Dawkins, intellectual filth versus intellectual fluor. What? Amdir smoking that Darth Dawkins backwood. That's clickbait. That would never happen. Amdir versus Darth. Let's listen to that. Let's see. Let's listen to Darth get smoked by Amdir. I'm sure. Then here's one. Darth Dawkins gets embarrassed / trolled / challenged. And of course, mutes. Darth Dawkins coerces Joshua Pillows to run from Monkey Boy and Jack. Darth Dawkins, #1 precept Christian debater, concedes to Monkey Boy. Let's see Darth versus Amdir.
The more you buy, the more you save. Save up to 50% off on all living room, dining room.
Oi, cat! No!
Find hot buys up to
Oh my God.
70% off throughout the store.
My cats
States of reality.
My cats have been so naughty. Oh my gosh. They've been really annoying this morning.
Striking resemblance to William Craig Lane.
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
Hey, how are you doing, Darth?
Yes.
I was.
You really want?
Where do they grow these cats? Are you a jerk? Welcome.
Hey, people.
Hello, Earthling.
So I have a question for you. So when you're running the transcendental argument for God and the reductio ad absurdum, right? And it kind of gets to that question where you ask somebody, for their worldview, what is the concrete unifying principle for all of existence, right? And if somebody gives you an answer, you're already saying there is no other answer other than yours, right? But any answer they give, you have some criteria that you're going to be able to reject their answer, right?
Yeah.
So that would mean that you have some criteria for that which, some criteria for the necessary attributes or properties of something that can be a concrete unifying principle. What are those?
Well, that's what the transcendental. So it's the categories that make experience intelligible. So we're talking about the preconditions for intelligible experience. So they're like, if you deny them, that's why it's an anti-skeptical argument. Because if you deny a precondition for intelligible experience, then that would be absurd, right? You're like denying, because we're having an intelligible experience. You see?
No, I agree. We're having an intelligible experience. What I'm asking, but that doesn't, I don't feel like I'm not sure I understand the answer. You're saying you're rejecting anything that I put forward. So that means you already have the requirements.
Okay.
You already have the criteria, the requirements for what the properties or attributes are.
Yeah.
Or
so logic has to be true to have an intelligible experience. For like, we need the law of identity. Without the law of identity, if nothing has an identity, you wouldn't be able to organize or categorize any experience and analyze it. So there would be no intelligible experience without the law of identity. And so that means that you have to.
So just be clear. So one of the necessary properties or attributes of something to be a concrete unifying principle for all of existence is the law of identity. Is that what you're saying?
No. You asked for.
I'm asking for what the criteria is.
We start with intelligible experience. That's the criteria. The criteria is, what are the things necessary for intelligible experience? So it's going to be like logic, uniformity of nature, reliability of senses, reliability of cognitive faculties.
Yep.
And then also the Christian God is eventually going to be one of those things. So to deny any of the preconditions of intelligible experience is to deny intelligible experience, which is impossible. So that's the criteria. So
but if I give another explanation for logic and math and for intelligibility, right, that is not yours, you reject it. And I'm asking, how do you reject those? You have to have a list of the things. What are the necessary? Basically, what I'm saying is, in your position, you're claiming that the necessary properties or attributes of something that can be a concrete unifying principle for all of existence. I'm asking what those things are.
What? Oh, okay. So like you would have to account for logic. So when we look at the properties of logic, logic is absolute, immaterial, unchanging, universal, eternal. So that to make that real, you need a being has those properties. That's absolute, unchanging, universal, eternal.
How did you figure those things out? How did you figure those things were the necessary attributes?
Because we have access to logic. So we're using logic, right? Right now we're using logic, and we're using it in a way where it's unchanging. I can't just change logic. If I could change logic, I could just change it to prove God or prove anything. It wouldn't be an objective standard if we can just change it. So it has to apply. It wouldn't be an objective standard if we can just change it. So it has to apply the same to me as to you in all situations. So so we need to make a immaterial, universal, unchanging. To make a immaterial, universal, unchanging, eternal thing real, we need an immaterial, universal, unchanging, eternal thing that's concrete. Because logic is abstract. So we need something concrete. The Christian worldview has that.
How did you figure that out?
What?
How did you figure that out?
I just told you.
Figure that out.
I just told you. We start with we're having an intelligible experience. That's where we start.
Yep.
And we ask the question, what's necessary for this? And we can say, well, logic's necessary. And then I go, well, what's necessary for logic? And then it's like, Jesus is necessary for logic. That's the
That's what I'm asking there. how did you figure out that Jesus is necessary for logic?
Because his attributes are the only attributes that can make logic real. And if you deny that, you're making a counterclaim.
What are those attributes?
Like,
what are the attributes of Jesus that make logic real?
Triune, immanent, transcendent, omnipotent, omniscient.
This is what I was looking for, and that's my question. So, how did you figure out that God, being one but triune in nature, a creator, eternal and outside of space time, omniscient, omnipotent, omnibenevolent, it's always? How did you figure out those were the necessary? How did you figure out that those were the necessary properties or attributes for logic?
Because ultimate reality revealed itself as having those attributes.
What's that?
Because ultimate reality, God revealed himself in creation, human history, as having those attributes. And if you deny that, you'll be reduced to absurdity.
Well, that seems, that's what's in question. The question is, well, God.
Okay, well then,
God
okay, well,
it. So that seems circular.
Okay, fine. Question it. So God isn't the precondition for intelligibility. So then you're making a counterclaim. So what is the something else?
No. I'm trying to get at to your thing. This is my challenge. This is my issue with.
You're ignoring the argument then. So this is
no. I'm engaging with the argument.
You're just no. You're not. This is ignoring the argument.
No, I'm engaging with the argument.
You're not. Are you using logic right now?
Yeah.
Where did your logic come from that you're using right now? What's the source of your logic? My source of logic is God. I'm being honest about my bias. You have a bias. So what's the source of your logic?
Source?
Sunlight. Do you know sunlight has a source? It's called the sun. Yeah. Logic has a source. It's called God. You disagree. So what's your source for your logic that you're using, bucko?
I don't know why you're getting angry.
Because you're being a dickhead.
No, I'm not. I'm engaging with your argument and telling you why I'm challenged.
By what standard are you not being a dickhead? What objective standard are you not being a dickhead?
I mean, I don't know why you're trying to burden shift. I'm just engaging with your argument.
Not burden shifting. Your mouth is writing metaphysical checks that your dumb fuck atheism cannot cash.
Sure, I know. I have explanations for all these.
You're throwing metaphysical
engage with this conversation. I'm trying to figure out. Look, I'm just trying to understand your position.
Coward, you're throwing.
I'm not being a coward.
You're coward.
I'm asking you questions about your position.
Excuse me. You're throwing metaphysical punches at me right now, and then you're telling me you're not in the metaphysical fight. So, is that what we're gonna do?
No. I'm asking you. I'm telling you. I'm trying to engage.
I can't stand these people.
Wow, you were so bad at this. Like you were just so god awful at this.
By what standard?
By the standard of you crashed out and
my standard is God. I use God to judge whether.
Yeah, you claim divine revelation.
I use God's revelation to judge whether something's good or bad. What's your standard?
Yeah, but anyone can claim divine revelation.
I use God's revelation to judge what's good or bad.
You
What's
have no standard.
Bro, why are you coming back up?
No, because I just I just want to can we hit the
the problem is you're bad faith. The problem is you're bad faith, and the Bible
I'm not bad faith. I'm happy to. Yeah,
now you're bad faith. Logic. So you're bad faith about being bad faith. So the Bible says, "Don't cast pearls before swine," and I feel like you have revealed yourself as swine. And so if I were to continue talking to you, I'd be going against what the Bible says. That's how I feel, and you don't care, do you?
Well, you brought me up again. You accepted the invite.
Right. Can you respect me as a human being, even though your model of reality, that wouldn't make sense to respect anyone, even though your model of reality, that wouldn't make sense to respect anyone or give anyone dignity. But could you hypothetically...
That's arguing from assertion.
Could you, where do you get human dignity out of your model of reality?
Where do I get dignity? Yeah, right, dignity. What's that?
Where do you get human dignity out of your model of reality? Why is human dignity real?
You want to define the word dignity first, and I'll tell you.
Oh my God.
Respectful?
Define the word dignity. Are you kidding me? Where do they grow these people? Welcome.
Good morning. Well, that makes sense why he treats me like shit, because he doesn't even know what human dignity is. So that's why now I get why he treats me like garbage, and he's like totally unaware that he's just like horrible. Holy crap! What a monster! His mom probably like always like wasn't honest with him, right? His parents probably weren't honest with him growing up and just lied to him. And then they created this freaking monster. Doesn't even realize how like poor his behavior is. Welcome, Ryan.
Are you doing okay this morning, buddy?
Yeah.
Okay. Just seems like maybe Gary didn't dump a load in you, and you're a little hurt about it.
Oh, that's funny. So do you want to do therapy?
I'm just checking on you, man.
Is it therapy time? That sounded like therapy time.
No, I mean, it just seems like you're trying to hold back tears, and I'm just making sure Gary took care of you this morning.
Okay, so what was your relationship like with your father?
What does that have to do with anything?
Well, you want to do therapy, so like, did you maybe?
No. I'm checking on you, sweetie.
Yeah,
you're all up in your feels.
But
you're not doing
you
okay.
Revealed something about yourself, and I'm concerned. I want to.
It sounds like Darth didn't.
I'd like to do some therapy.
Darth Dawkins didn't cuddle you this morning.
Was your dad like? Did he work a lot, and then maybe you didn't get enough attention growing up, and so now you're?
Oh no, I'm fine.
Loser?
I'm just fine.
Well, why are you an attention-seeking, shit-posting loser?
Why does it have to be that way? I'm asking how you're doing.
I don't know. That's what I'm like. I'm thinking maybe like your dad didn't give you enough attention, so you're seeking attention online.
And that's why I host a live every day talking bullshit about God. That's what I do.
All right.
Or am I just?
He doesn't want. Clearly, daddy issues. See, that's the thing is with Darth. Darth is such an alpha. Darth is a strong male role model, and so he attracts a lot of young males with daddy issues who are seeking like a father figure. So sometimes they'll go to like a Jordan Peterson or an Andrew Tate or like a Darth Dawkins. Welcome.
Yeah, so we're back. Can we hit the reset button?
Again, you didn't not treat. Okay, fine. Reset.
Okay. So basically, your answer. So kind of going back to the transcendental argument, so you're basically saying these things were revealed. So what we're trying to get at in these conversations, I think we can both agree, that we're from a same starting point that we exist, that we share a reality, and part of that, at least a part of that reality, is this material world. And
there's no neutrality. There's no neutrality. That's where you're mistaken. No one is epistemically. There's no neutrality. Because you're either in an environment where God revealed himself or not.
Yeah. I don't know where you're kind of going into this, that the argument around atheism or agnosticism. I'm just laying to see if we are in agreement of these things in the baseline.
But you're trying to like stake out neutral territory. But the problem is there is no neutral territory. The self-attesting Christ of Scripture does not permit neutrality. All reasoning is either submissive to him or in rebellion against him. So you are in rebellion against the self-attesting Christ of Scripture, which is why you're going to hell. But
yeah, I know you believe that.
If you repent and turn to Christ, he will wash your sins. His blood will cover you on the day of judgment. And you won't be thrown into a lake of fire to burn horribly for eternity.
Yeah, I know you believe that, and I'm just trying to get why you believe that.
I proved it.
When?
Well, earlier when I asked you, like, what did I ask you? What makes anything true if not God or something like that?
Yeah, you can ask me those questions, but you asking me questions isn't proof of your position. Why are you asking me questions of my position, trying to, when you say you objectively prove your position?
To demonstrate.
And when I ask you your questions, all you do is just tell me God revealed it. So I believe God. So essentially what I'm hearing from you is I believe God exists because God revealed himself to me. Right. And that seems viciously circular to me.
Oh, well, so it's either going to be that God created all facts or not, right?
Right.
Okay. So if God, in an argument, premise, conclusion is going to be like the premises are just going to be facts, right?
Maybe, if it's a valid argument or a sound argument anyway.
Come on, can you be somewhat charitable? Like, obviously, you're gonna use facts in your premise to prove your conclusion. That's
Yeah,
all.
you would hope someone would do that for sure. Yes.
So the facts are either created by God or not. So you want me to use uncreated facts to prove that God created all facts? Do you think that's reasonable?
Well, I take a position where I don't think that that I believe that certain claims like the existence of a God or the nature of the
I'm not
divine,
hearing an answer to my
other
question.
metaphysical propositions can't be known to be true or false.
I'm not hearing an answer to my question. You're saying you made the charge against me, the claim that I'm viciously circular.
Yeah.
Now, are you saying that I should use uncreated facts to prove that God created all facts? Does that seem logical to you, Mr. Rational?
I don't think you can lay out premises that are facts when it comes to these types of metaphysical
I'm not
propositions.
hearing an answer to my question. It's almost as if you're afraid of the truth. Are
No,
you
I just
afraid
answered
of
your
an
question.
argument?
I just
Is that
answered
an
your
answer to my
question. I
question,
said that
though?
I don't think in these types of metaphysical syllogisms,
Did I
if we're
use
having a
uncreated
philosophical
facts
conversation,
to prove
you're
God
creating a
created all
syllogism that those
facts?
premises would
Are
not
you
have
saying
facts.
Are you saying I should use uncreated facts to conclude God created all facts?
That's
Is
an
that what your
unintelligible
position
question.
is?
That's an unintelligible
That was
question.
what you just said.
It's not what I just said.
Okay, so
Now,
let me deal with
wow.
it. So, Earthling, is there a means by which we can know that God exists?
I say no.
Okay, so were God to exist, he could not make himself known?
If that's why I don't believe that God exists. That's why I believe gods don't exist.
You're dodging, and that's what deceitful people do. Now, listen very carefully. In a world where God exists, your position that God could not make himself known to his creation.
I didn't say that.
That's a question!
Take it easy.
No, I'm getting irritated you because you're a slippery, slimy, deceitful little person. Okay? Now, and most of you...
Is that what we ought to? Is to insult people like that? Is that moral? Is that loving thy neighbor as thyself?
You're the one who's being bad. If you weren't bad faith, you wouldn't have to.
I answered the question.
Hold on. How about let's not?
If God wanted to reveal himself, God could reveal himself.
How about let's not?
If God wanted to reveal himself, God could reveal himself.
Let's not.
Wait. Let's not.
I answered the question. If God wanted to, if there was a God and he wanted to reveal himself, he could.
Stop. Let's take responsibility for ourselves, okay? Take some responsibility for that insult, huh? Stop blaming.
Does that justify you?
Let's stop blaming other people for our problems, okay? Take some responsibility.
Well, that seems what you're doing. You're blaming me for your outburst. That seems hypocritical.
I'm not the one being bad faith. If you weren't behaving,
I think you are because.
I'm not the one being bad faith. If you weren't behaving,
I think you are because. I think you are.
Sir, if you have a problem with being insulted, this is a real easy solution. It's called don't behave like a freaking dipshit. Easy solution.
Now, we're going to try this one more time. Now, in a world where God exists, could he make himself known?
Sure. If God exists and he could, if God, an all-powerful, it depends on how you define the God. But an all-powerful, always truth-revealing God, sure, yes.
Is the only means by which God can make him known to engage in a revelatory action?
That would seem to follow.
Okay. So when we tell you how God exists and we appeal to an aspect that we characterize or represent as revelation, okay, then you were saying that that's fallacious because you said it's begging the question. When we appeal to revelation, right, that the revelation can be self-authenticating by its own positive representation, and the positive representation is such that the rational deniability of it is impossible. Do you consider that begging the question?
Yeah.
Okay, well, guess what? You've now forfeited your ability to affirm anything. Because when you defend certain propositions are true, it is by virtue of their positive representation, followed by that the denial of it would be a contradiction.
So when you say self-authenticating, that it means it proves and validates itself within itself or by its very nature? Is that when you say self-authenticating, is that what you mean?
Carefully. If God makes himself known through a revelatory action to us, and we simply recapitulate that, you say that that's fallacious?
No, because when you say God revealed himself, all that's telling me is that I've been convinced of a thing.
You know what? I'm about to kick you for your deceitfulness. Now, listen carefully. What you do is, you people, right? And I mean that specifically.
Yeah.
You pretend like you're responding to what's being said, and then you immediately divert in a machine gun fashion on a semi-related rabbit trail. So if I recapitulate God's revelation of himself, is that a fallacious begging the question?
Can you rephrase that question? I'm not sure I fully understand it.
Recapitulate God's revelation of himself putatively, okay?
What do you mean recapitulated?
Fallacious begging the question?
I don't know what you mean recapitulated.
You know what? Get the hell out of here. You're done. See, this is when they get caught with their hand in the cookie jar, and you ask very clear and narrowly framed questions to expose the bankruptcy of their empty rhetoric or empty characterizations. Then they go, "Oh, I don't know what you mean to that. Could you clarify this for me?"
Yeah, all of a sudden, I don't know what words mean. Magically, it's how convenient that at this, when I'm about to lose the debate, now I don't know what words mean. Sorry, dude.
So when he says it, see, this is their go-to response. Well, that's begging the question. Okay, so in other words, God's revelation would be fallacious because recapitulating it is begging the question.
Did you see how I was just presenting him his own position? When I'm like, so you're saying I should use uncreated facts to prove God created all facts? Does that seem reasonable to you? Do you see how he like dodged that too?
This is what's so despicable about this individual.
Oh yeah, Darth, his mic's got like a bunch of gunk in it or something. He needs to get more members of the Darth Dawkins fan club so he can afford a new mic.
Using the microphone on my phone.
Oh, you are? Oh, okay. Maybe you're kind of away from it, or you sound kind of low. But
I'll get my headset in a minute. But he's using his mental capabilities to perform mental gymnastics, all dodge and delay, and to stagnate the stalemate. All right.
it's funny, like it's like anything but God. The mental gymnastics they do is so tiring. I don't know why. It's just so Jesus is so simple compared to the crap that they come up with.
Yeah. So in other words, here's the problem. Begging the question is deemed fallacious because it's deemed arbitrary. Okay? So in other words, when we recapitulate God's revelation of himself, okay? I'm sorry. When we recapitulate that, oh, that's begging the question. So if God engages of revelation of himself and we repeat that revelation, we recapitulate it, that's fallacious, but he already conceded that God can be known by virtue of him engaging in a revelatory action of himself. So if we simply recapitulate God's revelation of himself, they go, oh, that's begging the question. It's fallacious. So in other words, no proposition, according to them, if they're gonna use the fallacy of it's called the petitio principii, which is the fallacy of begging the question. If he's going to use this as a universal maxim, that means that no single proposition whatsoever can be self-attesting and self-authenticating because it would be found guilty of begging the question. Okay? Therefore, if no single proposition can be self-attesting, then no proposition can be authenticated.
That's correct. Darth, you know who's the precept? It's like Elijah. I can't pronounce his last name, remember? You know what I'm talking about?
Eli Ayala.
I can't. I'm not going to try it. Okay, so he said that circularity is a feature of linear arguments, and that tag being a non-linear argument can't be circular.
Well, tag is a transcendental argument, so it's not circular. We're saying the property set known as God would be the necessary precondition of intelligibility and actuality.
Your mic is really bad.
Let me plug in my headset.
So like normally I think people get confused with tag. One of the things is normally like 99% of the time when we reason about something, we go from point A to point B to point C. But tag is different. Tag, we start at point C. We say, look,
What they're doing is they're conflating the transcendental rationale for the first premise.
okay, yes. So from tag, what we're doing, so instead of going point A, point B, point C, we start with point C, and then we go, well, what's necessary for point C? And then we go, oh, point B is necessary for point C. And then we go, what's necessary for point B? Oh, point A is necessary for point B. And so then they'll say point A is circular. But our chain of reasoning is circular.
Circularity, which you just with a spiral. Okay.
Because we're reasoning backwards. We're starting with point C, we go to point B, and then we go to point A. And point A, what we're trying to get at in point A is the what would you say, like the final reference point, the ending point to knowledge, that it's the stopping point where it's the source of knowledge itself.
Yeah. So there's something called being recursive. You know, A requires B requires C requires D requires A. This we call them being recursive. See, this is their desperation. So what we're saying is that premise. Well, first of all, when we talk about God being the property set being the necessary precondition, right? We're establishing this by a positive case and through a reductio ad absurdum. In other words, premise one cannot be rationally denied. So when they say that it's begging the question, no, we're just simply saying it's self-authenticating. It's not something that has extrinsic or external justification requirements.
Here's the secret as to why the non-believers cannot. They just, all they do is they hate tag. They just disparage tag, and this is the secret sauce. The whole idea of transcendental arguments is that they're anti-skeptical, and the whole idea
exactly
the whole idea of atheism, agnosticism is just to be skeptical. They have surface level skepticism. There's no substance to their skepticism.
That's correct.
Surface level skepticism. And since tag is anti-skeptical, they have no way to deal with it. Because whenever they debate evidentialism, they don't really provide counter arguments. They just provide skepticism. But that doesn't work with tag. And so they cry.
That is a very
what's going on.
That is very astute of you. Okay, that's a brilliant analysis. Okay, and so what they do is look, they're just pulling flat earthism. What I mean by that, they're just bickering. No, bro. No.
Because I always tell you I used to do the flat Earth debates, and then honestly, they remind me of the flat earthers. When I come to the debate, I have my model. I have a globe model, and the flat earthers says, "Well, I'm not saying it's flat. I'm just saying I'm not convinced of your globe model."
Yeah.
And they never provide another model. They never put another model on the table. They're like, okay, if it's not the globe model, then what is it? They never offer anything other than incredulity. I'm not convinced. That's what's going on here. We're saying we have this God model of reality.
Okay. So
they never present their model of reality.
Well, how about this? If premise one, meaning the self-revealing God's property set, is the grounds of being, okay, and an intelligibility, right? So if we simplify that and just say God's property set is the ground of being, right, and that it's self-revealing, and they reject that,
Well, they're adopting the negation of that. So how do they justify that in a non-question begging way? You see, their non-acceptance is a clandestine or a covert counterclaim that something else provides for the ground of being grounds of intelligibility. Well, how would you establish that? So when they object to premise one and they accuse it of question begging, they don't have grounds to object to it. That's why they gravitate toward saying it's question begging.
And when we're talking about, maybe we should point this out to people. When we're talking about a grounding relationship, we're talking about basically make real, as to like stand on real ground, as opposed to like float in air. So like logic is floating in the air without an anchor. It needs God to ground it or anchor it.
If I say that the world exemplifies ultimate design and intentionality, and it could only do so if and only if the ground of being was God, who had all great making properties, how is that question begging? Okay? Now, if we say that that putative revelation authenticates itself in the sense that there's a positive representation of it and the negation of that is impossible, they might want to accuse that of question begging. Do you understand? It's the self-authenticating nature of the positive claim that they're indicting the question begging.
They're doing a conflation or an equivocation between a metaphysical assumption and an argument about a metaphysical assumption.
So if I say the world reveals God, how is that question begging? If I say X indicates Y, how is that question begging?
That's just a metaphysical. So we have metaphysical assumptions. That's what we're arguing about. Everyone has metaphysical assumptions, which is just things that we foundationally believe about reality to interpret the world. So everyone has these assumptions, and we're making an argument for the assumptions, and because they're saying it's circular because the assumptions are circular, but they're confusing the assumption with the argument. The assumption is not the argument.
Look, they will say anything, no matter how illogical, irrational, or absurd, and pseudo-philosophical, to avoid accepting the transcendental argument for God.
It's weird, like a lot of people believe they're pseudo crap. I guess it's just because they're repeating things that
that's the nature of confirmation bias.
Yeah.
When you explain to people that the fossil record does not support transition, because of the powerful confirmation bias they have from groupthink, they just want to shake their heads no and deny this devastating piece of evidence. How about when I read people the quote from Coonan about Stephen Jay Gould, Niles Eldridge, and that the fossil record has not substantially at all really changed significantly, other than a few odd creatures here and there, right? The exemplification of stasis has not at all changed. They just ignore it. It's because of their confirmation bias. See, they have this little game. It's just they're just playing the contrarian game. Any fool can play the contrarian game. That's what flat earthers do.
Yeah, it's called just appealing to incredulity.
It's just bicker, rabbit trail, dodge, evade, become argumentative, change the subject. Notice how I pinned him down. I said, so you're saying God, first he said God couldn't reveal himself. And then he realized how absolutely absurd that is.
He got
and then he had to change his tune. Did you notice how he contradicted himself?
Oh yeah, he pinned himself like several times.
He first said God couldn't reveal himself, right?
Well, he pinned
but then he
himself.
realized how stupid that is. So God revealing himself in an act of revelation, if I merely recapitulate God's act of revelation, that's begging the question. So if I simply recapitulate how God reveals himself, that's fallacious. The only chance that they have is to say that the putative revelation is self-authenticating would be begging the question. But it's not begging the question because it's undergirded by a transcendental argument due to the impossibility of its rational denial.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's begging the question, how is the opposite that they're instantly embracing, how is that not supported without begging the question?
Yeah, it'd be only begging the question if we don't like give a reason as to why God's necessary.
First of all, we're not talking about ordinary states of affairs where you have a contingent set of facts. Okay?
No, we're talking about absolute. No, we're talking about absolute.
See, even William Lane Craig, when he formally disagreed in the 5 Views on Apologetics,
Are necessary.
he said, yeah, he in that chapter in the book, he's not nearly as strident or nasty as he was on his podcast. And he says, as commonly understood, it seemed to be a logical howler, right? But then he goes on to say, but what lies behind this is a powerful argument, a transcendental argument, and not merely this knee-jerk reaction that it's guilty of the petitio principii, right? Which is begging the question.
I think they kind of like scoff at metaphysics in general, though.
Well, a good example is Fiasco Peterson, where they scoff of it, but they don't realize that you can't evade metaphysics.
Yeah, I think Frege says language presupposes metaphysics, so they wouldn't be able to.
Oh, absolutely.
Without metaphysics,
metaphysics, you couldn't say the sky is blue without a metaphysical considerations.
but because they can't science their way to metaphysics, and they can't. Logic and reason has been a failure to do anything with metaphysics. They just kind of abandoned the project, and like they think we're cute for trying to talk about these things.
Yeah, they're just they just engage in teenage bickering. That's all they're doing. It's just like Danny Philbrough. How to deal with a presuppositionalist. Then when he encounters somebody who's good at representing the transcendental argument for God, presuppositionalism, Danny fails miserably at following his own advice.
Oh yeah. Let's see here, Danny. Jay dismantled him. That was pretty funny.
I want to say this. That was embarrassing for him. I mean, I couldn't believe at how badly he behaved. I mean, I don't mean disruptively. I mean, it was so obvious that he was just in there dodging. By the way, Danny Philbrough has published a new book called How to Handle a Presuppositionalist, and when you get it, it's all blank pages.
You'd probably be better off reading a blank page book than anything Danny would actually write.
His go-to response is, "Why would anyone believe that?" Good, okay, good. Let's use that against him.
I'm not sure why
should we believe anything in a world without a self-revealing God? What's your ultimate background information to believe anything? See, this is one thing that I think that a lot of presuppositionalists do not take advantage of, that is, very clearly Van Tillian, where Van Til emphasizes in a number of his books reject the revelation of God in creation and through human history, and you're just left in an absurd chance world. You can't argue for truth. There's no identifiable absolutes. There's no way to ground the uniformity of nature. Everything is in flux. Everything cannot be considered other than spontaneous. There's no correlativeness. There's no connectiveness because there's nothing within the system that imposes that. That's why I was able to blindside Graham Oppie. What institutes and secures unity and diversity? What does that? I can count books on my shelf.
David Hume will admit the same thing where he says like everything's loose and disconnected because there's no nothing connecting anything together under empiricism.
Yeah. Now he didn't actually believe that, but he's talking about from a purely rational point of view.
Can't find Danny's. I'm trying to find his video on pre-sub. I can't find it. Sad. Am I spelling his name wrong? What the heck?
You see, there's no doubt that moral problems are a significant influence on people adopting skepticism. And Danny is a good case in point because of his own publicly self-admitted moral problems.
Gosh dang it. Well, maybe we should end the live here. I got some stuff should probably do. Not getting many people requesting up. I think we had a good live though. It was a good live, Darth. I'll put Pete Mars obliterated Darth or embarrassed Darth.
You're begging the question.
All right,
That's their go-to. Begging the question.
Okay, have a good day, man. I'm gonna take it
All right,
off.
all right.
All right, bye.